more creative.
Going to be like Your Highness or Your Excellency. Somebody's going to have to get knighted.
All right, you are. Oops, hold on. You are good to go.
Okay. The special meeting of the Board of Directors, February 8th, 2021, 5 p.m. open session, meeting location. This meeting will be held by teleconference pursuant to Executive Order N-25-20 and N-29-20. The Board of Directors and employees of Oxford Preparatory shall meet via Zoom meeting platform. Members of the public who wish to access this board meeting may do so at this location. You're going to go to zoom.us and enter the meeting ID number 928-604-11900. Phone number is 1-669-900-6833 with a meeting ID of 928-6041-1900. Live stream can be accessed from the oxfordchampions.com website. Members of the public who wish to comment during the board meeting should complete the request to address the OPA Board of Directors form and submit it in order to address the Oxford Preparatory Academy Board of Directors. Requests must be submitted by 5 p.m. on 2/8/2021. You will be called on during the Zoom meeting to address the board either during public comments or prior to an agenda item. Please either log into the Zoom meeting at zoom.us, meeting ID number 928-604-11900, or call into 1-669-900-6833. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes. If an interpreter is needed for comments, they will be translated to English. And the time limit shall be 6 minutes. The Board of Directors may limit the total time for public comment to a reasonable time. The board reserves the right to mute or remove a member of the public if comments or actions disrupt the board meeting. Access to board materials, a copy of the written materials, which will be submitted to the School Board of Directors, may be reviewed by any interested persons on Oxford Preparatory Academy website, oxfordchampions.com, along with this agenda following the posting of the agenda at least 24 hours in advance of this meeting. Disability access. Requests for disability-related modifications or accommodations to participate in the public meeting should be made 24 hours prior to the meeting by calling 949-600-9051 or emailing jmarks@oxfordchampions.com. All efforts will be made for reasonable accommodation. The agenda and public documents can be modified upon request as required by Section 202 of the Americans with Disability Act. Our agenda for February 8th, 2021. Item number 1, call to order. This meeting was called to order by the board president at 7 minutes after 5 p.m. Roll call. Denali Agarwal.
Present.
Raymond Jackson is happily present. Call Paul Kagoo. Amy Smith.
Present.
And Delight Travis.
Present.
All right. That leads us to agenda item C, approval for the agenda of the special meeting of the Oxford Preparatory Academy Board of Directors on February 8th. It is recommended that the Board of Directors approve the agenda for the special meeting of Oxford Preparatory Academy Board of Directors on February 8th, 2021, pending the following revision. So I understand, Jill, that you would like to move item 6, discussion of advisory committees, before item 4, presentation
Yes,
of ED process. Is that right?
that's right. It's a better flow.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So if the chair, requests a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting, subject to the following modifications, item number 6 and item number 4 be swapped. Is that right, Jill?
Yeah.
Actually,
Well, actually, no, it's going to be
Item number
item
6 inserted
and
prior
then number
to-
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
yes, correct.
Okay. So we want to make item number 6, item number 4, item number 4, item number 5, item number 5, item number 6.
Yes.
I make a motion
cut
to make that adjustment and approve the board agenda.
As amended. Okay, that's our motion. May I have a second?
I second the motion.
Denali, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
This motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, that leads us to item number 2, flag salute.
Flag.
All right. Right hand on your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all. Okay, public comments, oral communications, non-agenda items. The public, including non-public attending a teleconference location, are invited to address the board regarding items not listed on the agenda. No individual presentation will be more than 3 minutes, and the total time for the purpose shall not exceed 15 minutes. Ordinarily, the board members will not respond to presentations, and no action can be taken. However, the board may give direction to staff following a presentation. Please turn in the request to address the OPA Board of Directors form and submit it in order to address the Oxford Preparatory Academy Board of Directors. Do we have any public comment forms?
We do not.
Okay. Item number 4 is actually going to be advisory committee item scheduled for discussion. Did I see that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's about advisory committees.
So you just have to make a motion so we can discuss it.
I make a motion to discuss.
I second.
All right. So then,
Hold on. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. This motion carries unanimously. So here we go.
okay, so I was just going to kind of go over quickly, just a little rundown of kind of different committees and what those different committees between advisory and legislative body committees kind of look like as far as which ones fall under the Brown Act and which ones do not fall under the Brown Act. So there's a couple of different ways that board members can be involved in committees. So one are formal standing committees, and those would be committees, it doesn't matter how many board members are on them. So you could have a quorum or not have a quorum. But if they are things that are sort of continuing, like you have a budget committee that meets on a regular basis and the committee was formed by an action of the board, or a meeting that is scheduled and fixed by a charter, or again, a formal action of the board, even if they are comprised of less than a quorum, they still are subject to the Brown Act, meaning that we would have to have formalized agendas, minutes, and they would have to be open meetings to the public, just similar to a board meeting. And then we have things like temporary advisory committees. So if it's just for one single purpose, it doesn't continue month after month or on a quarterly basis, and it really kind of goes away after a specific task is completed, then it's not subject to the Brown Act as long as we don't have a quorum. So if it's two board members, they're working on something together, but it has a fixed time and a fixed purpose, then we don't have to do things like have agendas and have it be an open session, open to the public. And then there's other things like advisors to staff committees. So if we have a staff meeting that happens with staff members, say a curriculum committee meeting where it's mostly staff members, but we have a board advisor on that committee, then it's also not covered by the Brown Act unless that committee was actually formed as a formal action of the board. So I have a couple of just examples, but first there is sort of an exception to the Brown Act rules. So advisory committees that are less than a quorum and they don't, so kind of like what I said in the slide before, if they aren't continuing and they don't have a fixed schedule and they weren't created by a board action, then again, they don't fall under the Brown Act. So just a couple of examples. So say you have an advisory committee, it's only two board members, and they oversee the creation of a budget. This committee is less than a quorum, but if it's a standing committee, if it's a committee that meets, quarterly every year to go over the budget, then that would be subject to the Brown Act, which means that even though it's only 2 board members, it would have to have formal agendas, have minutes, and be open to the public. Also, an advisory committee that has 3 board members, so it does have a quorum, it always has to comply with the Brown Act. So because it doesn't fall within one of those exceptions. So as long as you have a quorum, that does have to fall within the Brown Act, even if it's some type of advisory committee. So an advisory committee that has 2 board members, and it's just to create a report, say for the effectiveness of some school policy. It's exempt because it has a finite time frame. It has a sort of a fixed thing that committee is working on, and it doesn't have and it doesn't meet a quorum. So for that type of a committee, you wouldn't have to meet the Brown Act requirements. Same thing if you just, like right now, we have Danelli. She joins us for our staff finance monthly meetings. So that's a staff group that's getting together, and Danelli is coming in and she sort of acts as a board advisor to that group. And so this committee was created by staff. It wasn't created under formal action of the board, and so it's not subject to the Brown Act. And so that's why we don't have to have that those finance meetings open to the public, because that's really a staff group that has a board advisor on it. So that group could have 1 or 2 board advisors on it, because those board members aren't making any legislative actions, and because it's not a fixed committee that is directed by the board, that doesn't actually fall under the Brown Act. Another one would be an advisory committee. 2 board members, they meet on the first Monday of each month to go over some specific topic. Because it's a standing committee meeting, it's scheduled, that schedule is set by the board of directors, that type of meeting would have to follow the Brown Act. And then here's one that's kind of relevant to tonight's topic. Say we have an advisory committee composed of 2 board members and staff members. And really they're reviewing candidate applications for some vacant position. That, because it's created by staff, those board members are really just advisory to that staff meeting. It would not constitute a standing committee because it has it's over a finite concept over a finite period of time. So that would not fall under the Brown Act. So again, reviewing those resumes or applications, you wouldn't have to hold that in an open meeting and agendize that item. So these are just kind of some examples just to get you guys thinking when you're talking about, and I think at this meeting, we wanted to have kind of some discussion around ways that some of our board members can get started working on things. And then possibly, for the next meeting, determine what meeting or what committees we want to actually have as standing board committees. Again, those would have to follow the Brown Act. And what types of things we would want to have in the future as advisory committees, or kind of ad hoc committees, or just members of the board who want to be part of staff groups on sort of an advisory role, again, like we have right now for our finance meetings, would be a good example of that. So I just wanted to keep that kind of brief. There's also a 1-page little piece of paper in the board folder for this time that goes over this. And there's also a longer document that has some more information about this in the board folder. It actually pertains to city councils, but city councils and school boards. And so it has a lot of information about meetings and committees and the Brown Act for your review if you need more information. So now that opens it up for discussion from you guys or questions.
Is there a way, Amy, that we could get like a little bit of a matrix there that might say, you know what I mean, kind of an 8x8 sort of thing that says this kind of committee? I'm thinking about column heading being this kind of committee, this kind of committee. Does it have to observe the Brown Act? Does it have to be noticed? Does it have to?
Yeah, definitely. And then
Curiously, I looked for that, and I would think Google has everything, and that's the one thing I didn't see that they
Yeah.
had, which was interesting.
yeah, I can definitely put that together. And if you guys have some, and we've had some previous committees, and I can kind of put together kind of in categories where some of those previous committees would have fit, or some current committees. And then if you guys have ideas in your discussion for future committees, then we can also look at maybe where those would fit in that matrix as well.
Okay, so among the things that were included in our board folder was a list of all the standing committees that we have currently. And I want to just maybe review those briefly, because part of what I'm after is, so we've got Dr. Amy Smith has a particular set of skills that I would love to, take advantage of. Paul certainly has a set of skills that I would love to play to his strengths as well. And so I'm wondering,
and those standing committees that are in the board folder, those are actually never approved. And so those are, as of right now, those are sort of just ideas of standing committees. None of those are actually current formalized committees. So those can be used as a groundwork for determining what committees that we would want to have, or we could change those around as well. And a lot of, from what I've read, most of the time those charters for the committees would be created by the members of the committee once that committee is formed. So this would be more of a draft of what those could look like, but these haven't been approved yet.
Okay, so as an example, so we've got Dr. Smith, Amy Smith, and maybe what if she were interested in heading up a project that was centered around how successful we are transitioning students from middle school to high school and beyond. If one of our goals is to set folks up for a collegiate experience, and she were interested in measuring that, say, how well are we doing? What's the best way to have that happen? Do we need to form a committee around that? Would we kind of seeing as these are not even standing committees yet, do we put her in a committee and then charge that committee with some responsibility? And I have a couple of more questions. Like one of them is, let's say that committee needs some funding. Maybe they need to spend some money for research, primary or secondary analysis, whatever that is. Can we give a budget to that committee? How does that, do we authorize admin to spend on behalf of that committee based on their requests? Like, how does that work? And then of course I have the same question about Paul. So Paul's got a particular strength in facilitating strategy conversations, right? Mission, value, roles, and goals. What are we going to do when we grow up? What's next step? Where do we see ourselves? How do we get Paul in a spot where he can move forward with that discussion and move forward with some authority from the board or some direction from the board about that? So I know I just kind of jammed you with a bunch of questions, and so maybe
I think the kind of in looking at what we were talking about for Amy, that could probably fall more under like an ad hoc committee with some sort of fixed outcome, and or working with staff on trying to come up with ways that we can look at where our students are when they leave us. So I don't know that would, so if the board authorizes that committee, then again, we would need to have specific times when that committee meets, and it would fall under the Brown Act. So if we want to have that be a committee that does have to fall under the Brown Act, then the board could authorize that and we could create an actual standing committee. For something like that, though, it may be easier to have it be more like an ad hoc committee where Amy and another board member and staff members were working on some sort of outcome-based piece. Then the board isn't actually the ones who are authorizing that committee. We're just putting that committee together as an ad hoc committee. And then staff could recommend some sort of, if that group came back with a need for some type of budget, then we could authorize that budget just in the, put that money into our budget that the board basically, depending on how much money they needed, then it would determine whether the board actually needs to approve that or whether we could just add that into our budget and then present it out as part of the finance committee.
I think the key here is that this is to accomplish a specific task, and once the task is done, the committee is dissolved, and that the criteria for that, as long as it's under quorum, 2 board members or less, it is a temporary advisory committee.
Right.
Ad hoc. It's just Brown doesn't recognize ad hoc, but clearly, if this is task driven, the committee will dissolve. It's under two board members, then that's where it belongs.
Yeah.
Is it necessary to even have a committee though? So like, yeah, okay, so you can't just do a special.
No, I think to your point, I think we could do it that way, or it may even be easier if it's just something that, that Amy feels really passionate about, then she could work with staff, and it doesn't even really have to be a committee. It could just be her working as an advisor to a staff group who's taking on that project. And then it even falls less under possibly being part of a Brown Act, where we have to follow the Brown Act. So if it's something that is just something that one of our board members is passionate about, and it's something that staff can also be working on with that board member, then sometimes it's easier just to have it be a staff or a board advisor to a staff group.
And the board would appoint, would the board then appoint that board member as the board advisor, or is it necessary to do that?
You don't even need, for something like that, you wouldn't even need to appoint that person, because then it becomes an action of the board, and then it becomes that gray area of whether it falls under the Brown Act or not. So the board doesn't, if it's just a staff member working with a group of, or a board member working with a group of staff members, then the board wouldn't even really need to appoint that group.
So probably Amy or myself or David would ask a board member. We would like an advisor. You have a specific skill or expertise and interest. Would you join us on this project? So it would be a leadership team ask of a board member.
And so
And then it would be informational, informational at the board meeting, so all the board members know who's working on what, right?
Yeah.
What project.
Yeah.
And some other examples of that could be something like, when we're when the chancellors are doing their LCAP committees, then we would have, they might ask for a board member who's interested, or 2 board members who are interested to be part of that LCAP group, that LCAP feedback group, along with parents and teachers and everyone else. Or same thing if, David and Eva were working on HR, and they were screening candidates for a big position, then they might ask for a board member to work with them on that. And so it would be more kind of driven by the staff, so that it's not the actual board appointing those positions, because then it could fall under the Brown Act. But
So I have a
oh, go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I think that before we think about these ad hoc committees or ad hoc topics, I think I really like Dinelli's point last time, which was, look, I'm nervous about having just one board member, for example, in overseeing the finances, right? So if I look at that standing committee draft that you have, and I'm just going to quickly read out. There's a finance and audit committee. There is a development committee. there is a governance committee, and there's a couple other ad hoc like strategic planning and academic excellence. I don't know if the agenda is set up this way, but couldn't we leave this meeting saying we got at least staff 2 of those committees? One is the finance and audit committee, and another one's the governance committee, because that's just basic hygiene in a board. And I think we now have enough people in the board that we can staff at least those 2 committees. I mean, of course, others should comment on it. My opinion, at least getting those 2 committees stood up would kind of give a little bit of a strength to our board, right? I mean, we'll be able to kind of govern more and with less of all the overhead of getting all 5 of us in the same room and so on. So is the agenda set up that we can leave this meeting saying we got to staff these 2 committees and these are the 2 board members, or not yet?
It seems like, and correct me, could I, or based on what Danelli brought up last meeting, say, I'd like to add another board advisor to the monthly, the staff, the finance that we have every month. So if we made that ask as a leadership team, could that just be confirmed tonight? I think that's what you're asking, Paul, right?
No, I'm actually asking, I want to make it more formal. I want to have a formal, I would recommend that whatever we need to, I mean, if the agenda is not set up today, that's unfortunate, then let's figure out how to get the agenda set up for the February board meeting, so that by end of February, if not today, I would like to have it happen today, but you guys know all the other requirements. I would like to leave, hopefully by February, we have two or three standing committees that conform to the Brown Act. It's a formal committee that gives the board a little bit of arms and legs to do some of the work that we're supposed to do, right? I mean, managing the finances, managing the governance, right? And I think it'll also be helpful for the staff to look at the governance committee to say, okay, here are the things we need to do as a board. Can we, right? And I think, we could agenda, that's fine. I mean, it's Brown Act is what we have stuck with. And I would rather get some of those standing committees up so that, our board is solid, we have the right governance in place. And then, we can think about ad hoc. Is a LCAP advisory or academic advisory or strategic planning advisory? That's fine. But I do concur with Danelli that we should. I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, I would love to get it done today, but if we can't, then let's definitely make sure we have an agenda item for the February board meeting that we staff at least one or two of those committees. And of course, the rest of the board, please comment on it. But that's sort of my recommendation.
I love that idea. I'd love to walk away with some actions.
That
today.
is typical of charter schools, to have a couple of standing committees, and definitely finance is one of them.
So
And we're
We
looking
need
to
to put
use,
that on the agenda for next meeting in order to make it happen. Is that the way?
We do it today.
it's not an agendized item to select those committees today. One thing that I wanted to also bring up for the finance committee, I know we have this down here for the actual finance committee. If it is, so right now when we meet as the finance group, sometimes we are talking about things that have been redacted or we're kind of making updates to things. This would make that, normally the finance committee would be more for during audit times when we're collecting information and doing the things towards the audit. Having a standing finance committee that needed to be agendized and open every single month may get a little bit, I guess, difficult to do as an agendized Brown Act meeting. I guess I know normally now it would not be done like that.
Is it because there's more than 2 board members, or?
It's because if it's a standing committee, it has to meet the Brown Act, which means that if you guys do it based on this charter that's written right here, that would mean that every time we do our finance call, that would have to be an agendized open public meeting. Whereas if what David said is basically right now, today, you guys could pick, I know Danelli's the one who has been doing it, you guys could select a second person. We could still do the finance and audit committee and say that those 2 board members were going to be part of that standing committee, but I don't know if that standing committee is the right committee meeting every single month. Like I said, during audit time.
In my previous organization, we had a finance audit committee that met once a year, several times regarding audit because it's that important. But our monthly or bi-monthly meeting, just as we're having with Denali right now, that was a staff meeting where we invited various board members, depending on expertise, to join us. Okay. So right now we have Denali, and we want to add another one.
And it would be
Another-
great to have a second person, so it wasn't just Denali on
Well,
that.
I
Not
just-
that I don't,
Oh, no, I
it's
just
always
like
good
the
to have a
idea of having information and understanding of the finance
Mhm.
organization on more than one board member. I just think it makes sense. So that's what I'd like to see.
So we could, and those same two board members could be part of that standing audit and finance committee, because they would have the most background about it and be used to working with that same group. It's just that the board, actually the standing committee for that and the charter for that would really be more around that, you know, a couple of times a year looking at it. And then that those two members as part of our group would be the ones who look at it every month on our finance call. But it can be the
Yeah, I
same.
think that's fine, Amy. I think that's fine, Amy. I think what you're saying is that we scope the standing committee such that we don't provide the governance of your monthly, you know, day-to-day finance meeting that you have. I'm completely okay with that, no problem. But just good board hygiene says
Mhm.
that we should have a standing finance and audit
Yep.
committee, and
Yes,
unless
of
you
course.
guys believe it's not kosher.
Of course.
So I'm
No,
okay
I
with
think,
that. I'm
no,
okay with.
we definitely.
I'm not saying
should.
we should take this and make this oversight for everything finance related, but we should have a, okay, good. So then,
Yeah.
so could we
So we could
agendize
pick
it for
those two
February?
people tonight, and then for, that could be on, I mean, Denali already is on our finance group. The
Okay.
staff could make the recommendation that another board member join that finance group, and we can make that happen tonight. And then on the next board meeting, we'll actually formalize the finance committee. It can be those same two board members, but we'll actually do the formal, the board will basically appoint those two to the actual finance and audit committees. So, and the same thing with the governance committee, we can put sort of two members on a staff governance kind of project to then look at next time putting together that actual governance committee. So we have that, and then those people can work between now and February 25th. Those two board members can still be working on types of, on those two specific topics. So we're not wasting any time, but then we can just formalize that and determine how often that they're going to meet under the Brown Act at the next meeting. And then we can still use that as a staff group for them to not have to meet under the Brown Act all the time.
That's fine.
That'll be embedded in the charges of the committee, so you have a draft and you can, you know, talk about the number of meetings.
Yeah. And the charter can really happen after you guys create those, and then you get together with your first committee meeting, and then you can work on exactly what the charter is going to say, how many times a year that committee is going to meet, those types of things. So, so if you guys want to now kind of talk about who would be interested, at least in those two, and even we could even talk about, you know, who would be interested in kind of getting moving with the strategic planning, and make that, you know, kind of start that ad hoc group now too. I think those three, probably finance and audit, governance, and strategic planning are like and if anybody else has any ideas, but those might be the place to start.
I'd like to make a pitch that, you know, this is an educational organization, so that academics and educational outcomes should be a standing committee as well. So I see three core, the finance, the governance, and academics.
Mhm.
Yeah, we could do academic, I wrote down academic outcomes as another one.
So yeah, if we could consider that one as well. I know you had it listed as an ad hoc, but I think that maybe that should be considered as a standing.
And I think
Everything
that
else sounds great.
And I think that part of that, like what you were talking about, looking at our outcomes of our students, where they go to high school, where they go to college, that could be sort of a project that doesn't have to, that's kind of some of the members of that academic outcomes meeting, and you could meet more than just the standing committee meetings, but then we would have a couple of times a year, some you know, where that whole committee meets under the formal committee meeting.
Great.
So any ideas of who might want to be part of one of those groups, and then we can then those people can still, kind of
That's-
work with
so-
staff on that.
Well, I like the idea of, I'm kind of torn between, I mean, I understand the reticence to establish a Brown Act compliant committee meeting, but at the same time, I'm not super, I mean, if that's what it's gonna take for the committee to be effective, then we should do it. And I get that, perhaps the endeavor or the project to determine how people are, how effective students are, as they move away from OPA. I'd still like it still seems like it's a very important project. And it would be great to get some feedback, every board meeting about how's that going. So if that's not a committee, what is that? Is that Amy just sending staff an email saying, hey, I'd like to put together a project, and then
Mhm.
should we, I don't consider myself super informed about what precise questions to ask or how would you even measure success there, but I'd still like some visibility into how do we scope that project up. Is that something, because if Amy just goes off on her own and does her own thing, maybe she's going to miss out on something.
I think that you could do a standing committee on academic outcomes. So something where it is an open meeting and it's directed by the board, that standing committee. That standing committee, though, might just meet a couple of times a year to
Okay.
scope out those specific projects. So during that standing committee open following the Brown Act meeting, then you could come up with, okay, here's a project that we're going to do on making sure that we know where our kids are going after they leave OPA. So we'd scope out some different things that we wanted, some outcomes we wanted, some different ways that we were going to get there, even if we're going to need to have a budget for that. So during those actual standing committee meetings, those open meetings where board members can talk, it's an open public forum. That would be the way that we could then scope out those different projects under that committee. Same thing with, strategic planning. The actual standing committee would meet a few times a year to scope out those projects. And then also during regular board meetings, those committee members could report back during their board comments as well on the different committees that they're on. Normally in board meetings in previous districts, that's sort of where the board members would report out during their comments on the different types of committee work that they were doing and where those committees were, if they were just ad hoc committees or if they were just being advisors to staff committees.
Okay. And is there like a B, C, D, E, F, G kind of, how do we launch one of those standing committees? Do we, A is we name it, B is we define how often they meet, C is they, is there one of those? Can we start that tonight? Is that a conversation we can have right now?
So yeah, we could do it tonight in the discussion item, and then next time we can come back with
the charter?
Some basically the starter, kind of the starter piece where you guys could select who was going to be on those committees, and then once and how frequently they would meet and things like that to do the actual charter.
So we could put those on the agenda for 225, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one approach is we decide 1 or 2 or 3 people in the committee and let them go off and work off of the charter that has been proposed by the staff, and then come to the board for approval, right? That way we're not, the entire board is not kind of like working on so I think maybe could we select, I mean, if these are the 3 committees or 4 committees, I know Delight and Raymond, you haven't specifically talked about those 4, but if that makes sense, could we say, okay, among the 5 of us, here's sort of how we want to divide it off, and then agendize formalizing that next board meeting. And then in March, we come back with a formal proposal on charters for each of those committees. Can we do that now?
Yep.
Is that okay?
And as long as it's just 2 members who are going to be working on it between then and now, we don't want to have more than 2. then you guys are good to kind of start moving forward with those so that we have it a little bit more concrete to approve on the 25th.
Okay.
So I think we were talking about just kind of naming them off, the finance and audit committee. I know Denali is already on it. Is there anybody else who is interested in that? Or Denali, if you want to not be on it, but I'd rather have you stay.
Definitely.
Did you see her start sitting up? She's like, I got something to say. I want
I
to.
was like, well, do I get to opt out? No, I'm just kidding.
You don't get to opt out.
No.
But is
Don't
there
everyone
anybody?
raise your hand at once to join the finance committee?
So
I
I'm happy to do
so
it
much
if nobody else wants to do it, but I know I'm passionate about strategic planning. So that'll be, and I definitely want to be on that committee, but if no one else wants to do the finance, I'm happy to do it. I love numbers and
And I'm not
perfectly fine doing
sure
it.
somebody has to be at every single one if your calendar doesn't work. We just want some continuity and some training, right? Denali?
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah, I just
Yeah.
want, yeah.
Shared
Definitely.
responsibility.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I get hit by a bus, somebody else, or,
Yeah.
we just want to cross train a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
And come on, the budget is so much fun.
It's so much fun. Everyone's super excited about it. So I'm glad that Paul, you jumped right in. Anybody else?
No. Paul didn't jump in. He said he would do it if nobody else did it. And I'm happy
No, I
to
heard
do
him
it.
jump in. I
I'm
heard,
happy to do it. And I'll tell you why, because I really want Paul to be able to focus 100% on strategy. And I'd love to do the strategy as well as a co-pilot kind of thing. I don't know if, or Delight, is that something that you want to do?
Delight,
You want to
Amy,
co-pilot?
I really want to do development and strategy because strategy goes hand in hand with development work. So that's just my 2 cents. And we haven't talked about development yet. Development always comes later. And so really it's the strategy that helps set up what you fundraise for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Amy
Delight, I was
Smith.
actually thinking that the development committee would be the standing committee and strategy planning would be sort of one aspect of it.
Mhm.
I think I'm aligned
Yeah.
with how you're thinking about it.
I totally agree with you.
So we can switch it around and do that. So I have Delight and Paul on the so far as
we
part
haven't
of.
heard from Amy Smith though yet. Amy, how do you feel?
Well,
What are you
just to be
thinking?
clear, we're all going to be a part of the conversations and decision making, right?
Mhm.
These are
Yes.
just
Yep.
because, yeah. So I'm happy to land in anywhere
I
that
put you on
you all find
academic
me
outcomes.
useful. Certainly, obviously, with the project that Raymond has kind of scoped out that he'd like me to look at, that probably falls with the academic side more. But I'm also happy to, I like numbers as well. Happy to do that with Denali or be a part of strategy, but understanding we're all going to get to make decisions in all of them, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just kind of those who are taking
To
point.
facilitate,
Yep.
yes.
So far, here's what I hear. I just put you, Amy, on the academic outcomes, but you can also
I'm
be on
happy to do
something
that.
else, too.
Been told several times on it. I feel for you.
So far, I have Denali and Raymond on finance. I have Paul and Delight on development. I have a spot open on academic outcomes, and I have 2 spots open on governance.
Yeah, if I'm happy to do something on governance if or anywhere, wherever there is a spot, I'm happy to do one more committee. So
Me
I
too.
have-
I can do governance too. I don't
Okay,
know
so I
how.
have Paul and
benefit-
Denali then on governance, and then I have an opening on academic outcomes with Amy.
Yeah, I noticed no one's jumping on that one.
Everyone's afraid. I'm afraid.
you can't go toe to toe with another educator, Amy. So that's what makes
No,
us
I need
nervous.
balance though. I need somebody's.
Come on, I got Delight or Raymond, only on one each.
Or you know what? And I can, what the thing is if Raymond or Delight have want to do governance, I can hop on with Amy. I don't mind. I'm just not, I don't have any expertise, but I have opinions. So
I'm happy to do governance.
Okay, then I'll swap Raymond for Denali, and I'll put Raymond on governance and Denali on academic outcomes.
Got it.
So I have,
And I love academic outcomes. I just feel like I'd be such a dead weight. I don't feel like, I just don't feel like I would be a super contributor, where I feel like I would be helpful in strategy. I'd be helpful in finance, governance.
I hope you have low expectations for academic outcomes for me, Amy. I'm a worker bee though.
she's
You guys know this is all being recorded, right?
Yeah.
Denelli's full of it. She will be great on academics because she has lots of insights on that from her own kids. So,
Amy, do you think we want to do recruitment advisory now while we're all in this mindset?
that's where I was going to go next. But yeah,
I think that'd be good. While we're
I just
all,
wanted to get all these out of the way first,
yeah.
and then we have
I think you got to
Oh.
get it all out on the table first, and
Yep.
then we're gonna decide how
Mhm.
fair
these
it
are
is.
just
that
sort
you-
of the people who are going to spearhead these for right now, in between now and the time when we make the standing committees.
So one
Now-
point of clarification, Paul and I were in agreement about like strategic plan being an ad hoc and development
Mhm.
being standing. Is that how it's going to be set up?
That's how I wrote it down because I think it makes more sense.
Okay, I just
Uh,
wanted,
Yeah.
Because development is a much broader
yeah.
I think that's
broader
right.
umbrella, and then you can have strategic planning and expansion and all sorts of things that are under that, fundraising, all sorts of things that are under that big development umbrella.
Maybe we can change it to development and strategy maybe, and then
Mm-hmm.
not keep it strategic planning. So maybe make it a broader committee like that, development and strategy. And then, as because I don't think we'll be doing strategic planning every single year. So Delight, I think that's how I would think about it as
Yeah.
sort of a one time, and then we're going to be executing for the next 2 to 3 years and refining it slightly. So
Perfect.
Okay, so I have just one more time. Finance, Denelli and Raymond. Governance, Paul and Raymond. And then everybody's mixed up too. Paul and Raymond. Development and strategy, Paul and Delight. And academic outcomes, Amy and Denelli. And so we have kind of a whole, everybody gets to kind of work with different people then too. It's a nice mix.
Everybody
Like-
wins.
Like committee speed dating. Everybody gets to hang out with somebody new each time. And then we have one more just kind of with the recruitment for the ED, which would be more of an
Yeah.
ad hoc committee. And David's going to actually talk a little bit about that.
I am going to talk about it, but while we're in this zone of assigning and volunteering per task, it seems like we could just do that now.
Okay, before we go much further on that, I would just want to remind everybody that that we were very, very fortunate. We had a lot of super qualified board candidates. And during our conversations and meetings with those board candidates, we offered or asked, I think, all of them if they would be interested. And I think just about, if not all of them, said they would
Mhm.
love to participate in some sort of committee or additional work.
Mhm.
As well, I feel like there's probably a ton of parents and folks who would love to be involved in the kind of things that we're talking about here also. And so I'm not trying to make this more complicated than it needs to be, but at the same time, I'm a fan of, playing to our strengths. And if we have folks who are passionate and interested in some of these things and it's appropriate, then we bring them forward and have them participate in these things. So
Would that be done in the charters that are developed?
Yeah, and we can also, that can also be part of those, if they're standing committees, they're an open public forum. And so you can also then invite different stakeholder groups to participate in those as well.
okay.
Yeah, we have a lot of really smart parents out there, so it'd be good to
Mhm.
get some assistance.
Mhm. Okay.
All right, David, go with your
Ready?
spiel.
If you share the screen, if you want me, are we going to move on to the next item?
Yeah, and then we can actually talk, I guess we can talk about that because that's more of an ad hoc advisory thing. So as part of David's presentation. So I'm gonna-
I'll sell that during the presentation.
Yeah, everybody's
Okay.
gonna be jumping on board.
Yeah.
So then I'm going to close out item number 6 and moved to item number 4 now.
Yes.
And
So can
move
I-
to item number 5, which is items scheduled for presentation. That
Yes.
right? So any additional
Right.
discussion about item number 4, which is items scheduled for discussion advisory committees, any additional discussion about that from the board?
I have a question. How is that going to be? So what are the next steps? So how do we get the parent? What's happening with that? Like, how
So-
are we moving forward with that?
So we were gonna come, so next time we'll come back. If you guys want to get together with your groups sometime between now and the 25th, just to start getting some draft ideas for what that charter would look like and how to, how many times a year would you meet? Keeping in mind that these are the actual standing committees. So normally they would meet just a couple of times a year, and then you would have those more ad hoc committees or advisory pieces underneath of that could meet more frequently. And you can also in there determine kind of draft different stakeholders stakeholder groups that you might want to have involved in those committees or meetings that you would have as well. So for right now, it would be getting a draft together of what you want those meetings to look like. And then we'll put each one of these 4 meetings basically as agenda items. And so you would be, then the board would be directing the formation of those committees. You don't have to technically have the charters done for next time. It's more just starting to get some ideas about that, who you might want to have and how much you want to meet. But this will just be really to next time to be formally approving those committees, those standing committees and the members of those the board members of those standing committees.
So is there?
And I'll really make a pitch for what's in the, I'll really make a pitch for what's in the board folder. There's a lot of good work already on these committees. We probably would start with that and probably refine it. And then as Amy said, maybe we take another month in March to like super finalize the agenda. Maybe February, we start with a high level overview. Then March, we do a final. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's a very good point. Do we have a staff member that kind of we would liaison with for these particular committees?
Yeah, it would kind of depend on which committee it was. And so we can also kind of talk about which staff member you would be working with for the most, usually on these certain committees.
Is that something
depends on the expertise of the kind of what the topic is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for right now, I think it would be, you as the 2 board member groups kind of figuring out exactly what you want that committee to be. And then we would be able to assign a staff member to help you out with that. Okay. For the next one, really, it's formalizing which committees and who's going to be on them and making that board agenda item where you're actually creating those committees.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to put kind of a bit of a bird walk in there, just put it in your head for the future when thinking about you getting beyond the charges and the makeup of the committee. It's a great time for distributing leadership. We always want to be inclusive. I notice sometimes the same folks step up to the plate in our community, in our stakeholder groups. This is a great time also when you get there to think about providing opportunities to be part of these committees, whether they're advisory or standing, or for some of the voices we don't typically hear from. And sometimes it's not, how many years you've been at OPA or how many positions you've had, but again, this is an opportunity for us to be inclusive and hear many voices.
Can you think of like a specific example of that, Jill? Some group that I want to be sure that we reach out to every group.
Sure.
We go into the advisory councils and we reaching out to them. We're looking at Honor Society and we're asking them to.
I think so, but sometimes they're always the people that step up.
Okay.
And sacrifice. And to me, it doesn't need to be you don't have to do that to get there. So again, this is an opportunity for some of those members, but for others out there, other teachers, other staff members, other parents, just because you haven't been on those committees doesn't mean that you still, it's important to express an interest. We don't want to go to the well with the same people all the time.
Well, and I think, Jill, to your point, once these get formalized, I think it would be great to talk about how it'll be marketed to all of our stakeholders so that we can actually do that kind of recruitment, to your very point of having as diverse group as possible, helping support these important work of OPA.
I agree.
Makes sense. Good.
Okay. So then I'll ask again about this. So this is item number 4, item scheduled for discussion, advisory committees. Does anybody have any additional questions or comments about that before we move on? Okay. Hearing none, then we'll move on to item number 5, items scheduled for presentation. The Executive Director Search Process and Timeline by David Barley, our COO.
Amy, do you want to, thank you, Raymond. Do you want to share the screen? I'll see if I can run it, or you can run it, whichever.
Either one. I gave you co-host, but I can run it if you want.
Let me see. You see that?
Yep, you're good.
That look good?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so I'll try and use my decades of experience in putting together processes like this, come up with something that works really well for OPA. And having been involved with the last ED search, we learned some things. I think there's some things that worked well for those who were there, and some things that did not work as well from a structure and from an implementation perspective. So I put in the board folder a document there that is representative of the same that I'm showing here. It's kind of a checklist of everything that needs to be accomplished over a period of time to get to an ED, right? So I'm going to take each one of these in turn, and that'll show you really the timeline and talk through what we're doing tonight and what we see happening by week as we move forward in the future. So tonight on the agenda, you see the ED job description. I know Paul, you'd asked for the Word version of that. So that was posted in addition to the PDF version. I think Amy Smith, you asked for that too. So you all, I know have read through it and are likely going to suggest some changes or some updates when we get to that part of the agenda tonight. Now you can realize the second bullet point when we're talking about board advisors. That's the reason why I asked that we change the order of the agenda tonight, okay? So that we'd have the discussion that we just had, so that we could actually implement and think about implementing for the recruitment board advisors that I'd like to ask, okay, as a member of the leadership team, that the board support by offering 2 individuals from the board to be involved in our recruitment process. So we have the job description. We're hopeful to get that done. If not tonight, then as soon as we can. Okay, we'd like to. It was the job description that was approved in July of 2018. That's the PDF. That's what, so you all just need to determine whether there's anything we need to highlight or change. It was pretty robust. I'm sure Raymond, you probably worked on it with others at that time. So you can some history. But it's a big job description. So the other piece that's going on, and speaking of Raymond, I know there's a compensation review study that's being done right now. Raymond, I don't know if you want to speak to that since we're at that portion.
Yeah, no, just that Jerry's firm's working on that.
Okay, thank you. And then that would be based on a new job description. So you want to tie compensation to the job description always. So that's being worked on right now. And then what we do next is once all those other tasks listed here are complete, then we're going to post it on EdJoin, which is where jobs are posted in education, these senior level jobs. I put out there 2 weeks. We're right in the window of when these senior jobs are posted. We may have to do an extension for another week. Okay. We want to make sure we have a robust number of candidates and to ensure that, we have selection basically, right? Recruitment and selection.
So David, sorry,
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question on the previous page?
Yeah.
Do we feel we need to hire like a recruiting agency to help us find the right candidates and help us through the process? Or because as you said, this is a critical position for us to fill. or you feel that no, we can get enough of an interest with EdJoin and everything? I'm just curious what your
No,
thought
it's
process is.
that's an excellent question. I know 2 years ago, at some point, there was a education search firm that was used. I didn't see the results out of that, and then OPA ended up using other resources. So there is a nice flow, to answer your question, Paul, that you get from EdJoin. And we're right in the window, in the sweet spot of when senior leaders are looking for their jobs, because they're the first ones. And then usually certificated and classified are later in the summer, right, as we approach a new school year. So even with Ms. Alvarado, who joined us, she joined us in the spring, okay, and had that time to get used to OPA, moving from a traditional school district. And that was, she's shared that it was really important for her to get her feet wet and then be ready to start that new school year in August. So good question.
No,
Anybody
that's
else?
good. I mean,
And we can
comment?
also, I was going to say, we can also post on AXA, which is the Association of California
Yeah.
School Administrators, which is also where we usually post our administrative positions as well. And most of the administrators in California are part of that organization as well.
We did post our finance director position as well on another couple job boards, I think, right?
Mhm.
And one of the ones that was recommended to me was Teach for America.
Yeah, Teach for America. They said there's a lot of alumni that they have contact with. And the California Charter School Association.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the Charter Development Center would be
Yeah.
also good places to post for that job.
And we're members of both Charter School Development
The
and
last two, yeah.
the Charter School Association.
Just to have more of a
Now,
robust.
the other thing to remember is generally people who are looking for work or for a change, right? They're going to look on all those. So we don't necessarily spend, I don't feel like a lot of money to be everywhere, because they tend to, there's some duplication.
Yeah, but almost everybody looks at the same boards.
Mhm.
And EdJoin, like David said at first, is definitely the biggest one. Anybody who's in education looking for a job will search on EdJoin.
There.
Stop.
So I have another question about EdJoin versus some of these charter school stuff. Does EdJoin cater more to district as opposed to charter school background or anything like that? Or is it all kind of the same?
It's
It's all on
everything,
there.
private,
It's all,
charter, public, and even up to community college.
And university.
Yeah.
And then David, one of the
Mhm.
things, one of the questions that I have about it is I know that it's a big decision, to choose where to work. I mean, it's a two-way thing, right? So we need to pick
marriage,
them. Yeah, we
right?
need to pick them, but they need to pick us.
That's
And
right.
so I'm wondering if there would ever be a time, or is there something that we can do as a board to help? I'm thinking record a video, do anything like that that's going to help us talk about what it is that we're looking for, how we see a relationship with our future ED, anything like that that's going to help them say, man, if I just looked at the job description, I might say, nah, but now I get to, see what the people that I'm going to be working with are like. I like that more. Jill, do you have any thoughts about that? Are there anything we can do as a board that would help? Or is that after their initial
I
interest?
think it's, yeah.
Yeah, I would say after the initial interest.
Okay.
But the other thing is, I think all of us go onto LinkedIn and look up everybody's name behind the scenes too. So we certainly can put it out there, but we all investigate, thanks to the internet too. So
Yeah, and they're probably going to call you right away and be like, hey, Jill, what's going on over there?
that's right.
No, really, that's what I would do. That's the first thing, that's
Yeah.
the first call I would make,
Yeah.
actually.
Well,
Yeah.
Raymond, to your point, one thing that is common is doing a profile of the organization or the school. so that someone that's not familiar with OPA might learn a little bit about it. And even if it's not necessarily the job description, but it's usually like a paragraph or a couple paragraphs that just describe what the organization is.
Yeah.
I think that would be super helpful because I mean, the fact that we have one of the first 7-year charters and we're in such good financial health, I think those are great things to push out to any potential job applicants.
Well, and let's talk
Yeah,
about
Delight,
that. Do we have
yeah,
one
that
of the
was
first,
actually
or
gonna be
do we
my-
have the first? I think we have the first,
The first.
Mm-hmm.
just so we're, I mean, I'm not,
So,
nobody's tracking, but
so I'm understanding the point, which is, you know, it is a marriage, right? We think of it that way. We want to be able to market and share the great things about OPA to really draw in those great candidates. That's what I'm hearing. So there's some things we can do in our postings. We can add in a blurb about the organization and some of our strengths and wins, I think. Just to
yeah, leading with that first
drive
charter
somebody
school
to
in
the website and to
California.
do their own research, right? Go ahead, Raymond.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, I think first charter school in California get a 7-year. I mean, to me, that's like bam. They got,
Yeah.
obviously we're doing something right.
Yeah.
And that's one of those little artifacts of success that you've got to do 100 things right to get that, you know, so that badge means a lot. It's not just like, you know,
Yeah.
number 1 in attendance. Like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. It's nice.
All right. I get the point. So we'll work on drafting some things to support that. Let me keep going so we can get the
Wait,
total picture.
I'm sorry.
of the process.
I had another
Yeah,
question.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, David, on the slide before you move on. I wouldn't want to prolong, obviously, the recruitment process, but I'm wondering the reasoning behind only 2 weeks posted. I get there's a 1-week possible extension, but any
Mhm.
recruitment that I've been involved in where you want to get a robust candidate pool, it's a minimum of 3 weeks. So
Yeah. So that's why I put the 2 weeks minimum, you know, the 3-week edition. Because we're in the sweet spot. You know this, Amy Smith, right? That it's kind of the February, March timeframe, right?
But it sounds like what Amy's saying is we need to do a minimum of 3 with a 1 week
3 weeks.
extension,
Okay.
maybe
We
to
can
would
do
4.
agree.
that. We
Okay.
can move it to 3. So there are a couple.
Is that what you're saying, Amy? I don't want to guess.
you got it, Raymond. I was proposing we move it to a minimum of 3.
We
Okay.
can do the 3. I mean, I put it out there, so that's good. Thank you.
Thanks.
That makes sense. Okay, I'm going to keep going then. Developing the interview questions. We have questions that have been used in the past. I would love, you know, to ask for 2 board advisors to be involved with staff, with HR. I think Eva's on the call as well, our HR manager. And I would probably be involved too, to develop those questions, make sure they're robust, make sure they're representing exactly what the board is looking for at this stage of OPA's, you know, evolution, right? So a couple of years ago, it may have been a little bit different than it is now, right? Of what we're looking for. So that's another thing. We'd also, as we mentioned, request stakeholder volunteers for panel interviews. This has been done in the past. This is best practice, of course. We want our stakeholders to be extensively involved. What I'm saying is we have 3 parents or guardians, 4 admins, 4 certificated, 2 classified. And I put down there 1 other, suggesting one of our authorizers be a representative because they're an important part of our stakeholders, of course, and I think they'd be thrilled to do it. In my background, we would always ask clients or customers or key partners to be involved in an interview process of a very senior person. So that's what I'm recommending here. And then we would determine the panel members. It would be a joint, you know, this team of 2 advisors from the board and HR for the first round of interviews. So the first round of interviews would be with these stakeholders. And they would be screening the candidates and conducting those first interviews. I'll keep going if everyone's all right.
I have one question. Sorry, David.
Go ahead, Denelli.
It's
That's
about
fine.
the questions, interview questions. Is it possible to send out a request for questions from the board of director people that you could just, you know, take the best of what we want, but it just gives us different purviews from everybody?
Sure.
Yeah, actually, I was going to go one step further. From all the reading I've done, this is sort of our one main job is to hire an ED as a board.
Yes.
So really, our role should not be advisory. I think the board should be driving the questions, to be honest with you. I mean, no
Mhm.
disrespect to anybody. This is sort of our one job. Our one job is to
Mhm.
hire a good ED and manage that ED. So I suspect that we would want to be, I don't have to be in the advisory panel and so on, but I would make sure that I probably wouldn't even call us
Oh, yes, you
advisors. I mean,
do.
I think we are not the advisors. I think we own this process. I think, I mean, we ought to own it as a board. I don't know if,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
I'll clarify. So you all, this is absolutely your most important thing, okay? That and fiduciary, responsibility you have to the organization, some of those big buckets.
Yeah.
Board
And I
advisors,
think,
when I'm using it, it's based on our structure that Amy, we just had the discussion, that's how we're actually gonna, I think, make it happen. But you all own it.
I think one more request is that, I don't see board members in the panel, but I assume that the two advisors will be the panel.
Next slide.
Oh, okay,
I'll keep
sorry.
going.
So one last
it's
thing is
okay.
that I do want to make sure that whoever wants to meet the chosen ED before we make the offer, we get the chance to do it, because again, I think that this is very important. The board and the executive director, it feels like everything that I've read, it feels like this dynamic is the most important thing for the school. And so all the board members need to be comfortable. So maybe you're showing that next. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump.
No, it's okay. Paul's always ahead of the curve. I love it. Thank you. All right. So then this is step by step, right? You're going to have that team review the candidate resume. So every resume that applies, that team would review it, okay, and select the ones for the first round interviews, okay? The way we set it up is 2 panels of all those stakeholders. So it's 2 panels. We had 12 people, 2 panels of at least 6, okay, of the stakeholders I mentioned before. And they have different questions that they're asking. And then what happens is they then roll up their results to the team, the board advisors and HR, say, here's our short list of candidates, right? So that's how the first round works, okay? And then staff simultaneously, or at that point, when we get to the short list, begins some of the work behind the scenes. I've just listed some of them there, okay? Because we want to know that these are viable candidates, right? Before they get to the second round, Paul. And I put in here, we have the regular board meeting. So that's the time for us to update the community on how it's going with the process, because they'll be eager to know. So we'll probably put something on the agenda on the 25th, just to let people know. And then I've got in March, again, these dates, I've put dates out there just to keep us tracking. But if we're moving obviously to 3 weeks to post, everything will move a week at least, right? So I'm gonna make sure everybody's following. So we have it on EdJoin and other job boards for 3 weeks. So everything moves a week, right? And then what we do in March, we have conducted second interviews in open session. This is where Paul, the board, all board members are asking questions of the shortlist candidates, okay? And then of course, the last bit is self-explanatory. That's kind of the final decision-making and any, offers being extended, that kind of thing, and announcing to the organization. What questions? Go ahead,
Do
Paul.
the deliberations have to be in open session? I understand the interviews. I don't know why the interviews. I guess it's a rule that we have to have the interviews in open session.
You
but
have to be
need
in
to be
open.
session.
Yes.
It has to be in open.
Yes.
How about
Yeah.
deliberation to decide who we're going to pick? Is that open session too?
You could technically,
You-
yes, it's, all of it is really
Yeah.
supposed to be an open session, including, any deliberation of discussion of
Mhm.
salary, and benefits as well. So because it is such a big piece, and it is such a big piece of what the board is responsible for, it would be something that would need to be done in open session.
And we're recommending, a special meeting for that. So it's not mixed in with, a regular meeting, right? It's that important. We want that focus, right? With the top.
But when we had when we had our interviews, I'm thinking when Jill was there, was that a regular agendized open board meeting? No.
It was
No, it
it was
wasn't.
supposed to be, It was an
wasn't-
agendized meeting, not the panel interviews, but the board interview was an actual agendized meeting. It was just that it was recorded rather than played in open session. But it should have been an open session item.
Raymond,
Okay.
not everything we've learned was maybe exactly
Okay.
how
And
we
so-
want to do it this time. Right?
Okay. And then to Paul, Paul, I would say that the questioning piece is pretty awesome because it's like every candidate gets a set, like, let's say Paul, and then Paul, you're going to ask the same question of every candidate. Danelli, you're going to ask the same question of every candidate. Delight's going to do that, and then I'm going to get the same question, and we just go. You ask question number one, Danelli asks question number two of every candidate. They all get a chance to answer the same questions. So it's not like, on the fly. I think there might be a chance for some follow-up or some additional discussion at the end, but on balance, that's how it goes. Now, David, if you back up like one or two,
Sure.
my question about this is that when they get the resume, is there an equal amount of vigor that goes into making sure that we have a matrix that the board, I would assume, establish a matrix that says, look, these are the criteria we're looking for. Every one of those is worth a point or 5 points or pick a number. And as long as you meet this, you get to this score, you move on. That it's not, and I feel like it's kind of a double blind thing. Like, I don't feel like the names were attached to it. I don't feel like you're, you know what I
Okay.
mean? It's like
I understand.
candidate number one, this is their score.
So absolutely, I understand what you're saying. I think what we would need to do is make sure we're all clear on the criteria, right? And the weighting of what's important to us. Obviously, there's, years of experience and education levels and things like that. Some of those are very easy to quantify, right? But if there's other criteria, then we need to know that, right?
Well, part of the challenge that I have right now is it's a little bit, I feel like we're a little wonky. We're hiring a person and we haven't had a chance to really dig deep into what our strategy is. So if you asked, if David, if you were a candidate right now, and you said to me, hey, Raymond, where's OPA in a year? Where's OPA in 3 years? How many campuses does OPA have in 2 years or 3 years? Does OPA at all interested in having a high school? You ask those kind of good questions, which are great questions and questions that we need to be asking ourselves. So how quickly can, we dig into this mission, value, roles, and goals discussion so that we can answer some of these questions, right? I mean, there's a little bit of work that goes along. I'm not saying we need to stop the ED process. Please don't mistake that there. I'm not saying that. I want to move forward quickly. But at the same time, this is a marriage, and you're going to ask me what my values are, and I need to be able to answer you honestly and thoughtfully. I don't want to be a year down. And let me tell you why that's important it's intuitive, already, but because we may put more weight on a candidate that has experience with high school or and I keep saying high school, I'm just making that up.
It's an example, yeah.
Right. But we might have a candidate who, look, this candidate took a school from 2 to 20 campuses, from 2 to 10. They took, into some folks who were into, different scenarios, socioeconomic scenarios. Maybe you had 5 schools here and you know what I mean? And so we might weight that differently if we could have a chance to get to know ourselves a bit, and Jill, you can really help us kind of focus our energy, and be able to answer the questions that probably more than anybody what these ED candidates, they want to know, they want to do a good job, and they're going to have good questions, and we need to be prepared. And Paul needs to have answers. That's all I'm saying. Paul, get to the bottom of it, buddy.
And I think, there's simultaneous things going on. You want to get kind of a job description finalized so that we can post. And even during that 3-week period, you can be refining your requirements as far as what's more important to the board, what you're going to weight more. So some of that, as you're developing your questions, that can be happening to refine the type of candidate we're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and David, it goes back to my original question. The internal team, your team, the HR team, the staff, you guys have limited bandwidth, right? I mean, you have to run the school, but also
there's a team of two. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys have limited bandwidth. So my question and sort of to the board is why can't we let this team sort of focus on the big picture, focus on guiding another team that can do the arms and just serve as arms and legs for David and Eva, right? I mean, it almost feels like this is such an important thing that are we trying to save some money by not hiring, or can we just bring somebody in? David and Eva run the process. They set the strategy, they set the guidelines, but the arms and legs somebody else can do. So you're going to have this is a full-time job for the next month and a half, and I assume that your other full-time job is not going away, or you may have two full-time jobs already. So I'm actually asking, can we get you guys some help? Shouldn't we as a board try to get you guys some help to do some of this, scoring methodology and, interviewing the board members to say what kind of questions we need to have ready? I don't know if you guys will have the bandwidth for it, but, again, I mean, rest of the board, please comment on it.
I mean, of course, we're committed to do whatever is needed, and we'll make it happen. You all know that. Recruitment is a game of organization. Okay, so it's at an executive level, there's certain things that have to be done. If we're hiring a lot of certificated or classified staff, you're replicating. So it's just a different type of recruiting at an executive level. There's more.
Have a nice day.
High touch for candidates, right?
And Paul, in our experience, in the past, when we did hire a recruiter, what I found was we have so many friends, so many OPA friends, and the people that we're hiring are going to look where we advertise our jobs. They didn't add any value, and it was, an inordinate, I wanted $60,000 or $100,000, and we ended up hiring a referral from a friend anyway. And so we have so many friends who are feeding us great candidates that the candidate, and then to add to that, David, you may or may not know this, but David has a lot of experience with HR in his previous life. And as well, we've got a pretty good canned program, that the same thing that we had with Jill, that, obviously we're going to change the content around, but the fundamental package is going to be the same. The way, you're gathering data and you've got a funnel of candidates, and these are the people here, and they're going to work their way down, and these are the things that need to happen. And so if you want to look at an outside recruiter, I mean, I'm happy to do that, but at the same time, I don't feel like they are going to add the kind of value.
And I think Paul was bringing up, and I did appreciate what Paul brought up, more the logistics part of it, that it just may take an extra pair of hands, right, Paul? Is that what I understood?
I mean, I feel that, again, I mean, I go back to, this is like the one of the most important things we're going to be doing as a board member for the school for the next 3 years, right? 3 years, 5 years, whatever the time is. So it feels like I want to make sure that we do the best we can. And if that means, for example, David, that board members have to step in to help define, for example, the criteria, right? So we do some of that legwork for you, or maybe we go hire like a project manager for 4 weeks to come and help you do logistics, whatever it is. But what I'm telling you is that if there's one place where you want to spend some money, it's for this process.
I really appreciate the way you're bringing it up. I am very confident, okay, having done this many organizations, Fortune 100, 500 companies for 20 plus years, that we can do this with your help of the board. I can send out requests to you all, and working with Eva, we'll have a great process. We'll just need responses in a timely manner and to stick to our timeline and be focused. And I think we can do it, and we'll be happy with the results. I feel very confident that we can do this, even with our other 2 or 3 hats that we wear. Okay.
I would like to, I agree with Paul about the fact of having the board involved. And I would actually like to recommend, the top 3 to 5 candidates are actually, before they're in the open, we screen those in a closed session. Those, not the final one too, but like the 3 to 5, so that we actually have a really good like interview process to meet with these candidates. Because I do agree with Paul, this is one of the most important decisions that we're making as OPA. And so I would like to request that that's added into the process.
So, and
I don't wanna
Delight,
waste-
I have like mind on the slide we're looking at. We've got you all, the board advisors and HR reviewing the candidate resumes. They go to the first round and then you all see the results and you review them again. Okay.
David, I have one other question.
Shortlist.
When we had done this before, I was one of the parents on one of some of these committees, and
I remember.
we were doing our own research in the meetings before they came, and we found things, not me particularly, but other parents that I was with found things on the internet and on Facebook and stuff that were questionable. How do we avoid that this time? Like, what could we do better or different that could potentially avoid something like that? Do you know what I'm saying? Because remember, we found one that was
I remember.
with a closed school that was bad.
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's on the front end when we're reviewing candidate resumes. You want to make sure people are qualified to be interviewed, right? I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
It's absolutely important. And we did get stung, I remember, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But we need to be careful too, because there's just there's an element of besmirching that can happen too, where I don't like David as a candidate, and therefore I'm going to go out of my way to make it sound like David did something, I'm going to go on.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was more of newspaper, like
Yeah.
official newspapers.
Right.
We do that kind of background. We're very, very careful. So this
We're very
leadership
thorough.
team
Yeah.
it does a lot of investigation. Some of us have nowhere to look. I will tell you, and
And keep in mind that was the people that were provided to us by the people we paid all that money, the recruiter.
Previous
The
players.
recruiter gave
yeah.
us a bunch of,
Yeah.
bunko.
this is in some sense specialized, not a terribly narrow band. But the other thing is, if you create the right prospectus for your candidate, the charter school lay of the land and the educational lay of the land, with a school that is so high quality as of ours, considering some of the things we're beginning to envision, you are not going to have a cast of thousands. I'm going to guarantee you that too. And they will be vetted very, very closely. But to take on a school of this, an organization of this importance.
This caliber.
What's that?
This caliber.
That's right. You're not going to have, you're going to have, a smaller circle. You're going to have a competitive field, but this is not for the casual interest. So you're going to be surprised how many people are really going to be good candidates. Probably going to be fewer than more. We'll cast the net. But again, this administration is very careful and very knowledgeable about, and it's very investigative.
Jill, thank you for saying that. Danelli, Raymond, everyone, I want you to know, having been on the last panels, right, at the time, we can learn a lot of what to improve upon. I'll just leave it at that. And I remember, and I have the files from that last go around. So, we will do things right, and it will be a great process.
Thank you.
Danelli is smiling. I see.
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate that. I know you
Danelli-
would. I just wanted to throw it out there.
And Danelli, as a parent,
appreciate
how do you feel like the process went previously? Do you feel like everybody who was a stakeholder had an interest? Everybody had a say?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, our favorite candidates are sitting on this screen here too.
Oh,
Mhm.
I mean,
Wow.
yeah, so we were very, parents are invested. So, and having a good candidate pool just makes it even better.
mhm.
Critical. Yeah.
Yep.
And sorry, one more thing for me. I mean, I don't mean to get on a soapbox again, but I passionately believe that this is for the five of us, this is like such a big responsibility, to be completely honest with you guys, that we really need to make sure that as a board, we are driving this process. I mean, I passionately feel about it that, I mean, we cannot 1 year down the road say, oh, we picked the wrong candidate because we didn't have, that would just be a really terrible situation to put ourselves in as board members. So to the extent that we need to be helping the staff on, doing the vetting, and, maybe we need more, we need like, we shouldn't be advisors. We should be making the decisions, and we should be helping the staff determine what the criteria is. And if we have to put in extra hours between now and, guided by David and Eva's process, right? I think, we cannot afford to be 1 year hence saying, oh man, I wish we'd chosen a different ED later, right? So please,
Right.
I think, I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but it feels like this is one of the more, I mean, even, in our special board meeting, we have a staff of one, right? Our board has a staff of one. So we have one chance now to influence our direct staff. And I would love to make sure that we have a significant say in how this goes through.
I envision it, Paul, as being, we're serving up the data, the candidate, the resumes, the process. You all make the decision because this person works for you, absolutely. And you need to be directing us at the right points, right? Okay. We'll be soliciting your counsel, on the questions and those types of things, so that we can at least compile everything. So we're going to be, more administrative in this, but you're the decision makers.
I'm sorry, can I just ask to clarify then? Because none of the board members, I know I'm new, strike me though as being very passive. So I feel like all of us are ready and willing to be involved. So Paul, is there some part of this process that's been presented that we need to discuss making us more involved that you're uncomfortable with at this point? Because it's going to be then on the staff to make sure we're getting in and involved as much as possible.
Yeah, I think, Amy, I can be more specific, right? I would imagine that we are sitting down and writing down the evaluation criteria. We are sitting down and writing down what is the screening criteria, right? If we don't set the screening criteria now, you're going to get a set of candidates that we may have missed based on the screening criteria. So I would imagine, I mean, I don't mean to have another special board meeting, but I would imagine that we'd be having a discussion. I mean, maybe we'll discuss this when we talk about the job description, but I like Raymond asked the question, are we going to have a scoring criteria? I would imagine that we are approving the scoring criteria, or we're creating the scoring criteria, right? And I would imagine that the board members are also screening the resumes, and then we are picking the stakeholders, and again, I don't mean to like step on anybody's toes or not trust the staff or whatnot, right? I mean, for me, this is, I mean, again, I worry that that's what, Amy, I was thinking that I don't think as a board we are, to be completely honest, I don't know if we are deliberating enough, and maybe we'll do that when we look at the job description. But I personally feel we sort of saying, yeah, okay, good, the process, let's go with this process. Or please create a criteria and tell us what the criteria is. I mean, I think we ought to be getting more involved in it. It feels like it.
So if David makes the first pass at this, right, and he does a first pass at this, and he sends us what he thinks is a good criteria, we could opine on what if we think we need more, or like, is that reasonable, Paul? If he just does the first and then we add a little bit more?
Perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah, perfectly. But again, my disappointment is with Brown Act, right? I don't know how to engage with you guys, right? So what I would be doing then is I would be sending my one-off comments to David, and you would be sending your one-off comments to David, and then David would have to figure out how to reconcile all of these things. So I'm not sure how to do that. I'm not experienced with it. I'm not used to a board which cannot talk to each other.
The way we're allowed to do it, and some on the board have experienced this with me previously, I would be communicating to all of you. You would not be responding to all of you, right? Per the Brown Act, right? But what you'll see is in compiling, let's say, criteria, I'm going to send it out so that you all see it, right? Okay, and then can all respond. to me, and then you'll see it on the next iteration or whatever it may be, right? So we can do it that way. The other thing I suggest is, and I'm requesting 2 members of the board to be joining Eva and me, so I'd like to identify those 2 individuals tonight who have a passion for this, who want to be involved in screening resumes, helping to set criteria, making sure that we have appropriate checks and balances so that you all have confidence, okay, in the outcome, right? So can we get to that? Who would like to be involved is what I'd like to say. Ask.
Well, but I always think, David, that's a good question, and I don't want you to lose sight of that. But I think what I hear Paul saying is we need to be more involved earlier on, and he knows that I'm going to blame him if this thing goes sideways in a year anyway. So, so better we need to be involved earlier on. So at the time, there's no deliberation possibility. There's no potential. We lose a lot when it's just, this monologue. It's just David talking out to a group of people who are unable to respond in a group way. And so I would submit that it is appropriate for us to have a couple of special meetings. This is a special time.
Meetings. Absolutely.
And look, the reality of it is thank goodness we can do it by Zoom. So this is a lot less impactful for me because we're able to do it by Zoom. So if we have to have a couple of 3 special meetings to do this, to help where we can, let's agendize it. We put it out there. We have a discussion about it, and we iterate through what are the qualification and criteria questions, and maybe if we can fold in a little bit of strategy about that, so that we at least incorporate this idea of expansion into the, criteria for this qualification criteria, right? Because I hate to think that we miss a candidate who's got a ton of experience growing schools, if growing is what we plan to do over the next a few years. You know what I mean?
My absolutely here. I want to just put out there, we need to be on a fast track based on what I understand in education. We've got to, Amy Smith and others, the window is February and into March, right? This is when the candidates are looking based on what I've observed, right? So we'll have to do the hustle is what I'm saying.
Yes,
So
but we can interview in closed session. We can do that as long as it's agendized in the meeting. And it is, and I just looked it up and I can send it to you from the Brown Act. Okay. So I think this board really wants to be involved in that process of interviewing and being a little bit more involved in making sure to hire the right person, that we want to make sure that's a part of the process.
We can add that, but we can revise.
Okay. So I don't think.
And I know it's also important in open for transparency.
Yeah, the final piece in open is super important. Yep.
Yeah.
And so we definitely don't want to take it down to the point where you've got one candidate and we do one interview in open, but at the same time, while we have a bigger group and we're interviewing a bigger group, I remember spending an entire Saturday, doing like six back-to-back, 90-minute interviews, which was really helpful, by the way. And then calling and then having scheduled, David, I think and scheduling some time, Paul, the way it worked was a bunch of interviews in the morning and then asking the candidates that you wanted to keep to come back in the afternoon, so you could do a second interview same day. And that worked out really well. It was a big day. Saturday, it was exhausting, but at the same time, and I think measured by results, it was a great experience.
You got through the work.
Okay. So can we just put the question out to the board members? Are you guys available? Would you make yourself, and let's not mince our words here. I don't think this is an important part of what the board does. I just want to be clear. I think this is the most important thing the board does, because the ED, we have a 2-hour board meeting and then we go back to our lives, and the ED and the admin staff get back to work and, executing the vision of the board. And that ED role is absolutely the pinnacle of decisions that the board makes. I don't want anybody to get confused about that. And so with that in our heads, are we prepared to, have a special meeting or 3 or 4, and making sure that we have the requisite level of participation from the board, putting these questions together? Are we okay with that? I mean, I'm certainly okay with it. I just want to make sure I'm not I'm not making any assumptions. Amy Smith, you good with that?
Yeah, so just to be clear though, I would like to propose we still move forward with triggering the recruitment by getting through the job description tonight, so the staff can move that part forward. And then yes, do these special meetings to really form and infuse the strategy piece you're talking about into the recruitment process through the questions and the criteria and all of that. And yes, I would be willing to do some extra meetings for that.
I would too.
Couldn't have said it better. Okay, so we're all on board then, right? Okay. Okay, excellent.
And will there be maybe a couple point people? That's all I wanted to know. Or is it all does everybody want to be involved with every step of the process? That's what I want to just be clear on.
Well, probably in the interest of expediency, I'm happy to appoint or not to appoint, but to agree that there's 2 board members who are going to be kind of driving the million interim decisions that are happening. Yeah. Who would be interested in doing that?
That would be helpful.
Paul, are you interested in that?
Yeah, yeah. Again, I don't want to be always raising my hand if others want to do it, but I would love to do it because I'm again. I
think you take it seriously.
I compare this to the like in a public corporation, a board hiring its CEO, right? I mean, think about it that way. This is exactly that same thing. So yes, I'm happy.
And I'm happy to volunteer as well. I helped with some of the other ones with David, and I enjoyed working with him on the process.
Thanks, Delight. I appreciate that. I think what we need to remember is it's a culmination of all of our stakeholders' input, right? Which is critically important to have their input in addition to the board as leaders of the organization. So we want to marry all those needs and requirements and opinions and voices. That's what I think is most important, and you have a robust process that ends up with a great result. So that's what I think we should all be committed to.
Okay.
So maybe Delight and I and David can meet off cycle to kind of look at this process to see how we get the board involved at the right points, and then maybe before the next board meeting, Amy, to your point, we should definitely finish the job description today, which I expect. I love Dr. Kernan saying it's going to be a short meeting. We don't have a closed session, and here we are close to 7 o'clock, and we still haven't gotten the job description. But I think this is important. I think we can probably have that as an agenda item during the board meeting on the 25th, saying here's how the board's going to be able to intercept. Here are the points, and is that appropriate? And if not, where else should we add? Or this is too much, can we, right? We can probably do that.
Great. I look forward to working with you, Paul and Delight, to further, move things forward.
May I request to, I'm sorry, David, you finished.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was just going to request sooner rather than later, since we know we're going to need to have those special meetings. Could those get calendared as you guys go off and figure this all out? Just so we have a little more than like a day or two's notice about meetings. I would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And we might even be able to pick those days today, David, if we just want to say, hey, look, we want to have them at a semi-regular interval, so you know what I mean? And we'll just work out the agenda right just prior to the meeting if we wanted to do that.
I think, maybe Paul and Delight and I, we just have a separate and make sure we're not missing anything, and then we can send out a proposed schedule. Maybe that's the thing to do. Does that work?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay. And we can do that this week as schedules allow in the next few days. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and for the care you're taking in selecting our next ED. It's going to be great. Thank you.
Okay, so any additional, so that was item scheduled for presentation. That leads us to item scheduled for action, which is the new number 6A, approved job description for, before I move any further, does anybody else have any questions about search process and timeline that David presented? Anybody got any questions about that before we move on? Okay. So next item, number 6, approve job description for executive director. Staff has updated the job description for the executive director to reflect the duties, responsibilities, qualifications for the permission. It's recommended that the board approve action item A. So just as a reminder, we need a motion and a second, and then we'll break into discussion. So it's requested that somebody make an initial motion.
I'll make an initial motion to approve the action item A, the job description.
Thank you, Delight. May I- Second from Denelli. Thank you. Oh, Amy,
Amy.
thank you for that. Okay, so any discussion about that? Let's begin lots of discussion about that. How about that?
I don't.
Yeah, so.
Oh.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
I just have a couple of comments, and I have kind of a list of things that I wanted to ask about, and I don't know if we should take turns or if we should. What are you thinking? How do you want to conduct this, David or Raymond?
David, I'd like to see it if we can pop open the job description itself, and then we can kind of go through there section by section. I don't know. Delight's going to hate me. Delight, are you going to hate me if I do that? But
Sorry, I got hit by a Nerf ball.
So then, are we okay with that? If we open it up and just kind of go through and make some revisions?
I'll ask Amy, can you put the Word version up? Maybe. I'm trying to think how to do this. Because I think Paul and Amy Smith, you may have already made some
Yeah, I have a.
I'm not sure.
I have an edited Word version, David, that I don't know if it's appropriate to bring up. I'm happy to just walk you guys to the comment, or I've taken this Word version. Thank you for sharing, and I've tracked changes and I have a version as well. Whatever you guys want to do, I'm happy to kind of walk you guys through what I'm suggesting as well.
I think it's good to start with, a version that has already been marked up, or we can kind of work from. So whoever wants to go first, can we, Amy, Hernan, can we update this? I'm trying to see as we go.
Paul, do you want to stick your version in the board folder, and then I can open that up as just a Google Doc, and then make changes right on there?
Paul, do you have it readily available, buddy?
I have it. If I can share, I'm happy to do as well, but I can also post it on the.
If you can stick it in the doc, in the board doc, I can pull it right up on my screen.
Doing right now. Let's see.
Then we'll be well on our way. Maybe more efficient.
Here we go. Uploading right now. It has a February 8th draft in it, Amy. I'm just putting it in right now.
Okay, no problem.
And it's in.
Somebody was having a good time.
Cute dog. Oh.
Let's see, is it?
I put in the board documents folder.
Oh, okay.
You see it?
I was in our one from tonight. No problem.
Oh, sorry. It says Executive Director, February 8th draft. Okay, cool.
And Amy Smith, I think you did some track changes too, and it sounds like Denelli has. So thank you for doing the pre-work. It will help us work through this. There we go.
Okay.
So just to kind of give you guys a view, I mean, I did not make content changes to the job description, not knowing what degrees of freedom we had, and I assume others will have comments on it. I searched for job descriptions in other charter schools as well, and I agree with Denelli. You'd said, Delight, you'd said it up front. You kind of stole what I was trying to stole my thunder a little bit. So it's okay. What I felt was that the job description that we had probably did not sell OPA as much as it should. So I suggested. So I'll tell you structurally what I'm recommending. What first I said we should have a mission and vision, like staring at up front, saying here's sort of our mission and vision. And then we kind of talk about what our school is. I wrote something simple like we have K-8. The job description did not say what grades and so on. So I put that in across 2 campuses. And then I think we ought to add a lot about our accomplishments, right? And that's the comment you guys were making about the charter renewals and financially and all of that stuff. And I'll let, I don't know, the staff would be much better at doing that. And then Raymond, to your point about this notion of going to this exciting about strategic plan and growth, I added a couple of sentences, which I'm sure you guys would do a better job. We can edit that. And then I think what I did more broadly was I took the list of 18 or 20 job descriptions that you had already, the staff had already, and I broke it out into different categories. So Amy, if you can scroll down a little bit, I had a category for overall, and I completely took it from another charter school. I was just going through different charter schools, right? Why recreate it if we have other people have done it? So I reorganized all of your bullets to be about overall responsibilities. Then I had something about internal management. Then I think there's something for external management. And then I think there's one more, I believe. Oh, okay, that's it. So those are the 3 or 4 categories we had. And then nothing else. I didn't change, I changed here and there where I said I added mission and vision, not just goals, right? I said mission and vision and that kind of stuff. But other than that, I didn't change significantly, and everything is tracked. That's kind of structurally what I suggest. Start with OPA's mission, vision, and how awesome we are. Then go into sort of why is this exciting place to come to? Because our board is committed to thinking about next phase of growth, and then go into the job description. So.
Very good. Thank you, Paul. It's great to start with something, so it's really helpful. It's difficult to do things as, right by committee. I'm remembering graduate school, right? We've all been in these situations. So that's where I'm kind of, again, pointing toward if there's some way we can consolidate and streamline so that our Paul and Delight, kind of our committee, and maybe work on the job description based on inputs. And I don't know, you all need to.
Also this job description, if it gets changed, we do have to approve it before we can actually fly the position with it. So,
let's get to it.
Process timeline piece. If we don't do it tonight, then we'd have to have an additional board meeting to have that approved.
Can you delegate that and say, like for example, can we add all the comment or all the feedback, collect all the feedback and say, that this will be put together and based on the final approval of Raymond, for example, that we can go ahead and move forward with a revised job description?
You could I think it would be probably procedurally better if you gave your input now during the meeting and then approved it with that input. Because then it would actually be approved by the board versus approved by just one board member.
Individual. Yeah.
So we can kind of take that feedback now, and then you can approve the job description with that, basically under the, that David is going to take that and put it all together and then be able to post that job description.
And then I had one more clarifying question. We had to have the actual job descriptions of the EDs put in the charters. How dramatically can we change it, knowing that will we have to resubmit it to the agents, the authorizing agencies? Do they have to sign off on it as well because it's part of our charters?
As long as you're not making material changes to it. If you're just, kind of like what Paul has suggested here, where we're adding our mission and vision and we're adding some stuff about growth, it doesn't materially change what we're looking for in an executive director, we should be fine. If you guys were to materially change the qualifications or what this person's role is in the organization, then we would have a bigger issue. So I would suggest against that.
And a much longer timeline too.
Yes. We don't want a material revision for this.
I think the question for everyone is, when you read through the job description, on balance, was it 50% there? Was it 80? Was it 90? Was it a reasonably?
It sounded fine to me. It just sounded like it lacked sizzle. So it sounded like it was materially complete. It just
Okay.
didn't sell me on like what, like you're just like, wah, wah. And maybe that's just Raymond in the private sector and bringing my private sector brain to a job
Yeah.
description that potentially, everybody in the ED section and this, in the education
So-
world, that's what they're accustomed to looking at. It's kind of like when I look at a
Raymond,
government document that says this page left blank, drives me crazy, but it's very
Raymond,
normal.
I will tell you that, the biggest shock to my system when I came here and started reading job descriptions on EdJoin, they're really dry. I worked in high tech before and finance and all these great, for-profit industries. You're competing in a different way. There's a lot more marketing involved in that. So if you were to go on EdJoin, any of you right now, you would see very standardized job descriptions, okay? Very similar to what OPA has now. That's the practice and the culture that I encountered, all right? And Amy, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I think,
wait.
in
Yeah.
education, everybody knows what these jobs entail going in. So, you know what a superintendent does, an assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, a teacher. So it's more that the candidates then will go and look into the school district itself. So on EdJoin, it'll have a link to that district's or that charter school or that school's web page, and then it's a lot of times sort of on the candidates to find that correct match. But I think on the front page of EdJoin, less in the actual job description, but more in our sort of masthead on the job itself in EdJoin.
There's a blurb we can put, yeah.
Spice it up, like Raymond, is saying, where we can add the sizzle to that sort of front page versus the actual job description, because this job description normally would be something that would be, kind of year over year, once it's board approved, that this is the actual job and qualifications for this person. And the part where we want to catch their eye is on that front page of EdJoin, where we're talking about who we actually are as an organization versus the actual. And so you could make you could direct David to add sizzle to the EdJoin page itself about our organization versus putting that in the actual job description would likely be more appropriate to direct him to do that.
I wish we could do both. I
We
wish could
can.
have,
Yeah, you can
like
add
we
it into
could
both.
have the sizzle, like let's make it the way we want it to be. Not
And we
necessarily
do
what they've
have-
already done, right?
We have more creativity with some of the other websites, I would say,
And
EdJoin is,
I don't want to get stuck in all, like, let's get to, we need some more, we need to work on some of this little nitpicky stuff, but we can get it done today. Let's just get going.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So either Denelli or Amy Smith, I know you had some things, just because I heard you say it earlier that you wanted
You
to
want to
add
go,
in.
Denelli, and then I'll
Well,
follow
it
you?
was just, it's so funny. Most of my stuff is just questions. So
Me
the
too.
nut and bolt term, there's something better than nut and bolt? Is there like words we can use for that? It didn't strike me as like, I don't know. I just didn't love it. So,
Where is that?
and should we have a little part about FCMAT as to some of the things that they do? And is FCMAT, that's just kind of standard, right?
That would just, and it's not specifically FCMAT unless, FCMAT is coming in and doing
Oh, okay.
some
So
sort of
that's not a
audit
standard thing.
of you.
Okay.
That's just more fiscal oversight,
Okay.
which I believe is in here.
Well, and at the risk of bucking the system here, I want to say that part of marketing is you want to elicit the emotion in your target audience that you want to elicit. You know what I mean? You want to evoke a reaction in that target audience. And so we're not a district school, and we don't need to behave like district schools behave. And I think part of what we're talking about here maybe is if we have a job description that's conspicuously different. I'm not saying we need to turn it all on its head, but if we make a job description that's just a departure from the normal, we want that to evoke a response in a certain person, right? We want that person to be like, whoa, check this group out. This is the kind of free thinking organization I want to be a part of. And so I just want to throw out there, is it possible that we might just accomplish what we're after by bucking the system and by not doing what's so dry and by doing what's not so traditional and conventional? Because that's why we're a charter school, because we're not conventional, and we are a departure from the norm. Jill, I'd be interested to see, because Jill, you are our target audience here.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I'm asking you what you would think about that, because again, you're our target audience.
Yeah, it's pretty generic, and looking even at the format, it's really like a laundry list. No, it's like, so I
Is that going to
see.
make you say, hell yeah, I want to work there?
Yeah, it's it's there, but it needs to be clustered. It needs to have like something that's kind of conceptual to it in different areas. Like it's all this stuff, and that can be in there, but it's just kind of like, again, what are what's the design going to be? If you want somebody you really want somebody who could probably have their pick of any job they want, whether it's charter, whether it's, in the things. So in order to get that person that you want the best of the best, then you're going to have to come up with at least something that attracts me. And, just format alone, I think I want to see it clustered. I want to see it thematic. I want to see it, I want to understand it in terms of maybe some of the design principles. So yeah, I think there's ways to accomplish it. I would respond to this. The other thing is you can have it a little more clustered conceptually and have a dynamic prospectus to say, yeah, I want to join this. Okay. And have that either somehow woven into this or lead me to this. Because what it looks like on EdJoin, and you need to kind of go on EdJoin to see what it looks like. It will lead you to certain pieces. One is this, but also it can lead you to the site. And again, you have a dynamic prospectus, and that's really going to sell me too.
Okay, so it's 7 o'clock, 7:06. We want to get this thing done tonight. I mean, I don't want to we really want to get it done tonight. So what's the best, this is an open question, what's the best way to make that happen? Is it one person grabbing the cursor and the mouse and starting at the top and working, top to bottom, and we just bang this thing out? Like, what's the best way to do it? Do we want to adjourn for a half hour and give Jill and 2 other people a chance to work this thing out really quickly and come back? Like, what's the right way to do this? Because we want to get it done. And I don't think any of us are, we don't want to just get something mediocre out there in the interest of doing it. And I'm not super excited about having
Can I
another.
ask a question, Raymond? Then
yeah, please.
So when I looked at it, I made some notes of little things here and there, but overall, I felt it had all the right elements, and I'm certainly not opposed to, I think it's a great idea to maybe reformat it so it's better organized. And I did think too, agreed with leading with our mission statement would be really good. But I more had questions in that, did you see that there were gaps in previous candidates that you got that we need to consider then changing this description based on that? Or have there been gaps as you've governed that, oh, I wish that had been in the ED's job description so we could evaluate based on that? Because if not, I don't see that we need to make a lot of changes overall. Sure, some of these things we're talking about to make it sizzle, yes. But in terms of the content, I unless the answers to those questions are yes, I'm good with leaving the elements pretty much as they were originally written. So that's my take on it.
Well,
yeah, I'm with you, Amy. I think I'm with you, Amy. The content seemed to make sense. Of course, I think Raymond and Delight and you guys have had more experience. You can see what is missing. I would say my personal opinion, Raymond, to your original question is, let's go. I mean, like Dinelli had a question about, so anyone has a question about adding mission or vision? No, okay, go next. Dinelli had a question on nuts and bolts. Can we change that? Let's come up, or we have 11 people on the call. Let's come up with a different word. Let's put it, and then let's take a step back and say, now that everybody's comments are in, now let's see where we're missing. I don't think, adjourning half an hour, no one's going to make any justice without hearing from feedback that Amy had or Denali had, right?
So-
Can we also just say we accept these changes and then look at that document as a whole thing as well? So do we agree that we could take this, like the stuff that he's crossed out as well? I mean, are we able to do that right now? Just go through it?
Yeah, I did come up with nuts and bolts. You could put at a hands-on level. Maybe that's similar meaning, just on.
Yeah.
Some people don't like that when you're talking about serving students to talk about your hands-on. Just throwing that out there. That's come up before.
Good call.
Not that I hate it, David. I'm just sharing.
No,
things
it's
I've heard.
okay. That's why we're all talking about. We all have different perspectives. So
You
thank
could
you.
really say I'd like I don't know, with
We just remove it, right? I mean, why do
Simplified.
we need to have it? Why can't we just say on-site implementation of OPA program at each operating campus? Do we need to have
Yeah.
that extra level of?
That works.
Let's just remove at the hand.
Yeah.
Let's remove that. Yeah.
Now
That's
we're
a
making
relic.
progress. Now we're
That's
making
a relic
progress.
of past administration for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that's good. Look at us.
What about, can we go up to see, so I mean, to Denali's point, are you guys cool with the mission and vision directly from the website? Can we say that's good to go? Everyone's cool with that? So can we
Yeah.
accept that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And
I'm
then,
happy to make it
one thing
happen.
that attracted me to OPA was this theory of multiple intelligence. I didn't see that. I wonder if we need to show that. If the staff would know what sells the school a lot more. So I'd love to get your feedback on.
Well, it's
because the
down
theory of
on the
mid-
bottom, right? It's one of the
It's
qualifications.
in the qualifications.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But
And
I
then-
actually
and then
think
what
Paul, to
accomplishment-
your point, I do think it's something that sets the school apart. And so it talks about that being different and kind of that sizzle. So I actually like that it's also listed up there as well. That's just my 2 cents.
Should we pull it up from the OPA website maybe? I mean, do we have verbiage there that we pre-vetted already? Should I can go look.
I think you have more updated language in the charter personally.
Okay. Does anyone have
Other-
access to that? Can we?
It's on site. It's on the website.
Website. Oh, charter.
Yeah, if you go to the about and then charters, all caps,
it.
then everybody can pull it right up and you'll have the same version.
Perfect.
I would
You
just-
you can decide whichever one you want to pick, the SV or SOC. They
Yeah.
both say about the same thing.
Our lead-in should also though stay very concise because folks they're gonna see a bunch of paragraphs and just go
Yeah.
straight down and then skip it all. So if we can keep it
Agreed.
tight, even
I would keep it in this beginning piece. I would just list a few things. The mission and vision is great, but in that other part, to Amy's point, I would keep it very concise about what you want to point out and not have, because people,
Yeah.
I will
But-
be very honest, and I think Amy and probably most of our administrators will agree. The job description is probably the least thing that you look at when you're searching for a job on EdJoin as an administrator, because kind of like I said, we all know what all of these jobs are and what they entail, and they're all the same at any, most any place. So you want people to read it, but people aren't going to, they're going to do their own research into the organization a lot. So you really want just what you want to actually see and be able to evaluate in this
Yeah.
job description when you hire
The
person.
pieces that candidates look at are the dimensions, right? The listing of the different duties, right? And they look at the qualifications to
it's
make sure.
qualifications, yeah.
Yeah, it's minimum qualifications. Do I meet them? Okay, I can apply. And then the dimensions, they will be rating themselves in their minds on, oh, have I done that before? Do I have enough experience in that? This seems to be important to this job, right? That's it. That's what
Okay,
people.
yeah, then we can skip that. And then should we just, what accomplishments does the staff want to highlight in this paragraph? The renewals, the two renewals, is that something we want to put up?
Yeah. I think that's really
Anything
important.
else that you guys want?
I think saying that we're fiscally sound or fiscally healthy, and I would say the first 7-year charter, to Raymond's point.
We do have the distinction of being in that highest tier, that high quality. Not many schools are in that, but for this CDE, we have a designation of being,
So I
looking at
just-
you, Amy.
I just put, OPA has the first 7-year charter renewal illustrating our high academic performance. OPA has
Maybe you can combine the fiscal strength with the next sentence, Amy, saying, with the strong fiscal background, OPA's recent accomplishments it sets itself, or something like that, so that you can say, building on that. Foundation. Or...
a strong fiscal foundation.
Yeah, that flows.
Anything else about strategy, guys? Raymond, I know this is passionate to you. Should we say, because I don't think you're going to, I think when we have the interviews, we could talk about sort of the vectors we're looking at, but now should we say something about, I don't know what else we could add to kind of pique their excitement. It's not just come and run the school, but it's also now thinking about.
Yeah, but we're
next phase
looking
of
to
growth.
expand, or, those kinds of things. The possibility of taking our successes to other areas or districts or additional campuses. Something that's going to strike the right chord, and the right person is going to say, that's what I'm looking for. I don't want stagnant.
You're trying to say you want somebody who's a builder, who's had experience building or opening new schools, maybe, or growing, in growing programs, that.
Or who would love to participate in it. You don't necessarily have had to have done it a bunch of times, but if that's something, but don't come here and then try to tell us why we should just put all of our, we just hunker down and have 2 campuses.
Yeah, a passion around it.
Well, it's almost like you want them to be on the cutting edge of education as it continues to evolve.
Yeah, and great with maintaining, relationships with authorizers and things like that. That stuff's really important. And that's a novel skill. That's not something that the average administrator has, experience with.
It actually reads pretty well what's there.
So I put OPA is embarking on developing. I just was listening to you guys and writing as you guys were talking. OPA is embarking on developing an innovative strategic plan to support this potential growth and expansion with an eye on taking our exceptional programs to new areas and opportunities.
I like it.
I like it. I'm good with it.
I think it sounds really good.
Mm-hmm.
Good, I didn't have to type much.
Why is it underlining? Is that just an ad? Is that why?
I was just typing it in. It didn't go in as something new. I just added it as you guys were talking. I didn't add it as a comment. I just added it into the document.
Okay.
I would swap out ion to say with the aspiration. With an aspiration. Just take out the colloquial. Yeah.
Of taking on.
With aspirations of.
For the potential growth
I
expansion.
think it's just with aspirations of.
Yeah.
Exceptional programs in new areas.
With aspirations of, and I can actually take out expansion here. Potential growth with aspirations of expanding.
How about developing exceptional programs?
Well, we want to say that
we
we
have
have
them.
them. So I would say I just took
Expanding.
expanding out of there before. So we already talked about potential growth. It doesn't need
Okay. We said developing. We've already read.
And then with aspirations of expanding our exceptional programs to new areas and opportunities. All right, so then looking down to the position overview, is there anything looking at Paul's suggestions. Is there anything that needs to be changed? We took out the nuts and bolts piece. Is there anything else that needs to be changed in here?
Here, primarily, Amy, what I did was I added this notion of reporting directly to the, because I assume every ED needs to know that they have access to the board of directors. And the one thing that I was not, I need your guys' help was, I thought like the educational leader is not the ED, but I don't know if you guys believe, I don't know if that was right or not, because I'd assume from an education perspective, the CAO would have, that's why I removed the educational leader, but if that's incorrect, then we should put it back.
I would say because we're a school organization, the ED really is still
The educational leader.
of
Yeah.
the organization.
I think that's
I think,
standard.
yeah, it should be, at heart, they need to be the educational leader. What I took some exception with was the way this was originally written was, again, we use that hands-on, and here it appears again in that paragraph. This was meant for a CEO, an ED, to really have a direct reach into the schools, and that kind of bypasses the CEO and some of the chancellor's responsibilities. So I think that piece of the job description is kind of antiquated. And you can see that in this paragraph here.
So we bring back, so we can reject the removing of the educational leader. So we can reject that change, right, Amy? So you can.
Yeah, I was just making sure that
So you want to put that back?
Reject anything else. So.
Okay, and then you guys are okay with. Okay,
We
and
need
then we change some words there. We change. So
We need
Yeah.
to add serves back, right?
Yeah, see, that's what I was trying to do, because if I reject the whole thing, then it rejects some of the other stuff we put in there. So,
Just retype it, I guess, maybe.
so the executive director shall be the general manager of the corporation and shall supervise, direct.
I don't like control. Please, let's find another word.
I
Well,
would just say shall supervise
manage.
Direct the school's
and
activities. Just-
direct the school's activities.
Yeah.
The school's activities, affairs, and officers. Or could we just say shall be the general manager and educational leader
Yep.
of the corporation, and then I can just get rid of this entirely.
You just want to say directly supervising the chief academic officer, so that they understand they're not the one in charge of curriculum directly like that.
And I don't like corporation. It feels very.
Yeah, I don't like the corporation
business-like.
there.
Yeah.
Organization.
Organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
OPA,
these
just
are
call it
all-
OPA, right? Educational leader of OPA, right?
That's the organization works there
I think the
too.
organization works.
And the next sentence has OPA. So.
Yeah, and shall supervise and
Well,
direct.
you have that in the next sentence, right? Amy, you have the executive director directly supervises senior staff members. You can say including if you want to put it that way. Because next sentence has that supervision point that Raymond was talking about, right?
Senior staff members, including the chief
Including.
academic officer and chief operations officer.
Yeah, something like that maybe.
And it could be others at some point, you never know, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
that's why it
That's why
might just
including
be,
makes sense.
Senior OPA administrators, and then it would cover all of those people instead of calling them out specifically.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Because then it also encompasses the chancellors and,
Mhm.
And then that sentence I deleted. I personally didn't like it. That you just keep the board informed. I don't think that was very. It's like it feels the board is passive in there, so that's why I removed it. But if you guys feel strongly, you should put it back. I don't think that is necessary because you already said it's reporting directly to them. That's why I removed that sentence.
Yeah. don't like that, how that next sentence is starting, right? So,
He is responsible.
yeah,
Yeah, I was reading that. So maybe is responsible,
campus period. Or,
and I wouldn't even say this hands-on interaction. I would
yeah, just
say
take
is
it out.
responsible for direct management
With the on-site folks. So.
with on-site OPA staff to ensure that the OPA model is being successfully implemented at each campus. And maybe it's to ensure that the OPA vision
Vision.
Yep.
Vision and mission.
being successfully implemented at each campus, vision or mission, vision and mission. Mission and
Vision and
mission.
mission.
Amy, do we
maybe.
need, Amy, do we need is responsible for direct man? We already said that up front, right? So could you just go to ensure OPA mission and vision rather than is responsible for direct management with on-site OPA staff?
Is
Do we need that
responsible
again?
for ensuring
Yeah.
the
okay,
OPA
good.
mission, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds better, I think.
And to evaluate the performance of,
That's a long sentence.
Yeah, I'd break it up.
yeah, 'cause it doesn't even go together.
Yeah, then maybe period after campus and then start a new sentence.
Yeah, period after campus. You're right, Paul.
Director.
Actually, I feel like this next sentence is very specific and should go under one of the other categories. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
say something here more broadly about evaluating and constantly managing the performance of the organization versus getting into staff evaluations.
Yeah, I agree.
I would actually
I
take
agree,
that
Amy.
whole piece out because we talk about them being responsible for ensuring the mission and vision. I think it could end there.
Mhm.
And then I think that the staff evaluation could go under the overall leadership responsibility.
Yeah,
Yes.
agree.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
So if we take
I think
this
it's there
and-
already, I think, right?
Yeah,
I think it's already in the,
I'm just gonna make
It's
it,
already in the below area, I think.
yeah. So
I'm
you
gonna
can just
take that whole
delete
part
one.
out, and then it just ends with the executive director shall have such
Yeah.
other powers and duties as the governing board or the bylaws may require. And
Yeah.
then it
Yeah.
already is in here as far as managing staff members and
Mhm.
Mhm.
Can we
Yeah.
start that sentence over again? So wait, go back up. We have campus, right? The executive director directly supervise senior OPA administrators to handle the on-site implementation of the OPA program at each operating campus, period.
Yeah. That's better.
You can start saying ED, right, Amy? Because we already said ED up
Oh, yeah,
here,
we
so
already
we can
said
start saying ED.
Yeah, every one of those sentences starts out the executive director.
and actually I can change this one just to ED to just make it easier to
Yeah.
read.
Yeah, and then the last sentence too.
And you can always use
That, can you figure out that crossed out serves up top there? Yeah.
So if everybody's cool with this, I'm gonna keep Paul's
Yep.
change here.
We're gonna add some fancy logos and stuff, right, Amy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The top.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
And
cool.
We
we
have
have
a
fancy
whole like
logo.
kind of thing on EdJoin with logos and our masthead and all of that.
Mhm.
I like a little fancy, Paul. I'm glad you like that too.
Do we get scented paper too, or? not
I don't think that's in the,
Okay, so if, is everybody okay with?
can we
the-
go look at, can we go up one more time and see? There's a red eye is right there.
I haven't accepted it right there.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so accepting the changes on here, this first part.
So back to Amy's question, did any of you, Dinelli or Raymond or Delight, did you feel that we were missing? I mean, because essentially the rest of it is essentially just recategorizing and putting in buckets. Do you feel we're missing anything that you want to add back here?
Under the
I
job,
didn't.
under the job duties, Paul, you mean?
Yeah, for job descriptions, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, Amy's question was a good one. It's like, yeah, now what have we learned?
No,
I feel like as long as you have other duties as assigned.
Yeah.
You're
covered.
pretty
You're covered.
One of the things that Jerry Simmons was saying today was that we want to make sure that this matches we can always add to what's in the charter, but we can't take away from what's in the charter. So this matches what's in the charter.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I would try to materially change this as little as possible. So adding in the pizzazz stuff and the mission and vision is fine. Those are all in the charter, but changing these things, we want to try to do as little as possible.
Well, we wouldn't want to take away. We can
something
add. We can add. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And Amy, one thing is maybe you guys can check, some of them ends with semicolon, some of them ends with
Yeah, I was
period.
just
So
adding them in here.
those types of cosmetic stuff you guys can do, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And spell checks, of course,
Mhm.
which you did. Thank you already. You corrected one of my typos up front.
I do it as
Here
I
are
do it.
OPA.
I did find a statutes, I think, versus statutes somewhere.
Yeah. So last bullet point before external management, Amy.
Yeah, statutes.
Yeah.
And Eva and David can read over it and make sure all of those little
Cosmetic, we'll work on.
grammatical, cosmetic type things are fixed.
And making sure too, I think maybe like with that CAS, like that acronym, is it spelled out somewhere else before? And if not, I think just making sure they're all somewhere in their first use. Yeah.
Can I ask you something?
You take the parentheses before the word California. Take that off, please. Thank you.
Can I ask you something about the bullet point? Coordinate student expulsions, including appointing an administrative panel to hear and take action on recommendations. Do we have to say student expulsions twice on there? 'Cause I'm nitpicking, but it's just, what do you guys think?
Let's see where you are. Oh, I see. Yeah.
On recommendations instead
Yeah,
of saying,
I like that, Denali. I like that. Yeah. Such a negative thing that.
yes.
Recommendations, period. Yeah. Semicolon. All right. That's good.
Okay, so on to external management.
The funding stream should be its own bullet.
I was just gonna say the same thing, Jill.
Can,
Yep.
The last one, it says makes personal determination in cases of hiring and terminations and set performance standards. Can we just say make personal determination in cases of hiring and make personal determination in case of hiring and terminate, like not make it some plurals?
I think it's personnel, so we could do human resources determinations in cases of, is that?
Well, it's just that the
Sorry.
plural of cases and terminations.
Hiring and termination. Take the S off of termination is what you're saying, right?
Hiring and termination.
Or
Yeah.
in case of, and so you have cases, that's plural, right? So take
But I think
determine,
they're talking about individual cases, not like in case.
okay.
Because it's like kind of
Make
the
personal
semantics
Yeah.
of it.
It's like in situations.
Yeah.
In situations of.
Okay,
hiring.
all right.
I,
Is that
I would
okay, guys?
rehome it up above near the evals, because it's just kind of,
Yeah, aren't we in the external section here? So why is personnel?
yeah,
Yeah, that should be.
that should
Not
be.
there.
Above, that's a good catch.
Can you just make sure it's not already there in the internal section?
says review evaluations, evaluate performance.
And actually, I'm gonna move this up
By the other one,
because it,
Put it next
and
to
put
the-
it right after this one.
Yeah,
related.
where it belongs.
Okay.
Can we get
Cool.
external management on a different page so it's not bunched like, so that
We
that
can-
starts?
I think once they put the logo in.
We
I
can-
think
Yeah,
we
it's
can-
gonna
Yeah, just make sure that the
pop up.
page breaks.
We'll
I just hate
fix-
it when it's page break
Oh,
like
no.
this.
I
Yeah.
do too, Nelly. I'll fix
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
We'll fix
perfect.
that
Thank you.
on the final version.
Under external management, I think one thing that's super important is to maintain professional relationships with our authorizing entities. And it talks about ensuring that we have like the documents and things like that. But there's that professional relationship that is so important for us as we are a charter school.
Yeah. And
I-
ensures.
Maintains, whoops. Maintain professional relationships and ensure. Because we have S's and no S's, so David's just gonna have to go through and make sure that they're all,
Thank you, Amy. I don't
Because
like
it's
all
sort
the
of all-
S's and no S's.
it's sort of all over the place, so
Yeah.
somebody just gotta look at the final draft and decide whether it's going to be
Present.
developed or developed.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Amy. I agree.
Whether we're gonna be passive or assertive. And
I
it
tend to like with
assertive.
the
Should be no
yeah.
S's. It should be maintain and ensure, and then it should be oversee,
oversee.
conduct, and
Okay.
direct. Because otherwise it's passive and it shouldn't be.
Here's your
passive
strong
and
verb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I like the way you educators say it. You're saying exactly what it is.
What
All right.
about, sorry, is this the end of this list or is there more below the red?
That's what I was looking. No,
Oh.
then it goes to qualifications.
Did we capture somewhere like oversight of communication and marketing? Because that might fall under external
That
management.
would be
as
under
well.
external.
I love that.
I
Yeah.
think-
And that could go here under the funding streams also. Coordinates communication and
Marketing.
marketing. That's the word I was looking for.
Sorry, I thought you were trying to think of a different word for marketing. I didn't say it again.
I was like, what word? What word? That it was not in my mind. All right, so
Is there
coordinate.
something is the communications and marketing the same thing as PR, or is that something in addition to
Communication
marketing?
falls, or PR
Yeah,
falls
would fall under
under
marketing.
communication, yeah.
Okay.
Coordinates and communicates efforts for the organization.
There's a bullet. I don't know if we took it out, but one of the bullets above did say acts to resolve controversy relating to school affairs. I don't know if we took it out, but it's kind of interesting. It seems
Is it in
like,
external? Let me look and see where it
It
was.
was
seems
in the
like
board
that would
governance.
be covered in the bullet we just created.
Yeah. I didn't, might be under internal.
There it is.
Again.
It's
Under
right there.
internal, it's right here. It's acts to resolve controversy related to school affairs.
Again, that is, that's a, again, that's a relic of the past.
I would probably take that out. It's kind of an odd.
So,
Do you want to say the spokesperson, be the spokesperson of the organization?
Relating to school affairs.
Yeah,
I could put that down here and I could put
External.
be the spokesperson for organizational affairs and coordinates communication and marketing efforts.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Be the spokesperson. How about act as spokesperson?
Act as
well,
and coordinate. And then I think this, these were all, I was looking at them earlier, it looks like all of these were actually up here. You put somewhere, Paul, you just kind of moved them around.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can see all of them up there, so I just wanted to.
We can
point that out.
delete
I'm
all
going to
all that.
actually,
So where's the other duties as assigned? Because that's usually the last one.
It sure is. Sure is, Amy.
You don't
I
want
think
to
we
omit
actually
that.
put it up here where we said the ED shall have such other powers and duties as the governing board
Okay.
of the bylaws may require. We actually put it up at the very top.
That's all right.
an Overview.
That covers it.
And
So-
you know, the fonts are different, right? You saw that the fonts are different, David.
Yeah, we need to, there's
Yeah.
different sizes and everything, so all of it needs to be reformatted.
Yeah.
Shame
Sometimes
on
when we
me for
take
not
it out of
catching
Word
that.
and then open it in
Paul,
documents, it goes funky.
Paul, you were focused on content, not it's okay.
No, I mean, like, yeah, these things are important for me. So I'm disappointed I didn't catch.
Me too.
You're all good.
All
Okay,
right, what's below, everything else, were there changes below qualifications? I
should
mean,
be all the same unless you guys want to add any qualifications. We should leave the qualifications that are there in there because that would be a
that
material.
would be material.
Unless
so
you
I
want-
brought this up about having an administrative certification. Is that not, I mean, I know it's not required, but is that something you want to require, or is that, what do you guys,
It could limit your pool, but you're,
so that's not a requirement for this job,
It
for our
technically wouldn't,
organization, not,
but it could be.
It could be, it's something, you know, other charter school organizations don't have it there, so.
I don't
Others,
know,
some
I mean-
school districts don't either, you know, so. it depends
So
on
There's
am
a
I-
lot of
am I-
charter schools who the ED is not a school administrator, but it
Oh.
would depend on what your, what
you're
you
looking
felt was important in that position.
I don't really know what the qualifications are for an ED, you know, coming from a different kind of industry, but I just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss it if we needed it. If we don't need it or don't want it, that's different. I know we don't need it.
Amy,
Mm-hmm.
last bullet point. I see a lot of like O's that are inserted there before multiple, before data. There's like 3 or 4 throughout that paragraph that were they different bullet points? I think maybe they were.
It probably, yeah.
Although no.
Yeah, all those little O's.
Yeah, they're probably sub bullets. I think they're all sub bullets. I think, I don't know, something must have happened with them
Yeah.
and we moved it to
Maybe
Google
that.
Docs. So,
And then,
yeah, exactly.
Thank
There's
you.
multiple intelligence.
I saw what you did there, Paul. That was good.
There we go. Paul, did you make any changes or did anybody make any changes on working environment, physical demands, any
No.
of it?
Nope, nothing.
Pretty
I just
standard.
did the formatting and indentation, that kind of stuff.
Okay. How about anyone else on the
these are just kind of our standard things.
kind
that
of the standard things we
But,
always have? Compliance related?
compliance issues.
Yeah.
And that's our non-discrimination, which has to be in there. So
Yeah. And
That-
bold.
the bold bottom parts, we can't really change because that's our actual non-discrimination policy.
Yeah.
Wait, what's that? Blue. Computers,
Machine, laminating machine.
machines.
Mhm.
Laminating
So the
machines.
laminating machines is kind of an odd one. I don't know.
I'm like,
But,
really?
I
Really?
don't know
Need
why
it?
we're getting that.
Didn't have to do that.
You can come in.
What happens when you cut and paste.
Don't tell them, Jill. Don't tell them they won't have to do that.
It's-
Okay, so anybody see anything else? And you guys can all see this in your
Amy, go to the TB clearance for a second. Something looked weird, please. Is it bullet or something off? Maybe it's
It's
the-
off because these are small and that one's bigger. It just needs to be reformatted.
Okay.
The bullets are
Okay.
funky
I just
Um,
thought.
there.
Well, we'll
They're still off. You guys,
do all that.
it'll
I
be
just-
better if you do it in Word because I have it opened in Google
I
Form.
just noticed that. Thank you. All right. Well, we'll do cleanup.
Can I have one last comment about right where you're at under qualifications, the first bullet, on the last bullet, sorry, last bullet point, first sub bullet.
Local community.
Yeah, I like the essence of this, but I don't think it's direct enough about being equity minded and serving students from diverse backgrounds and abilities. So I don't know if there's something a little more specific we could add to this.
Add,
Or-
we could add that something in if,
Can you restate what you said? Amy?
Well, I was simply thinking like assist students from various, like, I don't know what the socioeconomic backgrounds or a diverse student population. You know, this is what I'm getting to, is that, you know, we're equity minded.
and
Principles of equity in serving students, that they have some knowledge of that.
so,
Oh, yeah, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think is the common, right? DEI,
principles of equity, inclusion. Yeah, that's what I was trying to,
yeah.
equity, inclusion, and diversity. Knowledge of strategies. To educate students. Backgrounds and I need a better word than needs, but and I guess that sort of works. Including knowledge of.
What about special needs? Do you want to say special needs or education?
I don't
about
want to
this-
point out like special. needs,
About
so
Yeah.
I'm trying to go the
Okay.
gamut of
Right. All sorts of
diverse
needs. Mhm.
backgrounds and educational needs from, you know, Gates special education. to
That'll work.
English.
Yeah, exactly.
How about diverse educational backgrounds?
Okay. Well, but we're also looking at diverse other backgrounds too.
Yeah.
So it
I
could be
think as it is, it looks
socioeconomic,
okay.
it could be racial,
Yeah.
ethnic backgrounds. So I think probably this covers it. This will cover diverse backgrounds and any education needs.
Thank you.
Good catch, Amy. Thank you.
Anything else?
That's good.
That was pretty great.
Yeah. Can we go to the top and just do a quick, I just want to see what it looks like.
Take it from the top.
Take it from the top.
Don't mind the all different fonts though. Those
No,
are
we'll fix.
And
we'll fix
no,
all that.
and no pretty little pictures. Okay.
We say OPA has the first 7-year charter renewal. Does that need to be bounded at all with, the state of California? I mean, I think we have a little bit more oomph we can put there.
And does it matter if both schools have charters that are, I mean, you're talking about one school that has a charter. Should we put something about the other school having a 5-year charter, or that where both schools are chartered for, I don't know.
I had something that somebody would find when they were researching the.
It's not necessary.
I get, this is more about things that like kind of stand out
Okay.
Mhm.
about us.
I wonder in this, we serve our community, because in the second, you start with our vision and then there's no mention of OPA again. I'm wondering if it's proper to start the third paragraph there with OPA serves, blah, 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 and then we have the first. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a long
Yeah.
time until you state OPA again, as I'm now reading it all as one.
Along those lines, in the last line, we should say with aspirations of expanding its exceptional program, not our.
Do we want to say we have the first 7-year charter renewal in California?
Or in the state.
I think it needed that context, like I said. Yeah, I agree.
That following sentence, with a strong fiscal foundation, OPA's recent accomplishments, set itself up, again, it's kind of colloquial, have set the
Colloquial.
foundation. Let me have set the foundation.
Yeah.
OPA serves its community, not our community, probably. If we're gonna.
Yeah, keep it uniform.
Yeah. First or third.
That might then need to be addressed above as well, because
Yeah.
it's going back and forth throughout. So
Be
Take it
OPA,
take it out of first person.
yeah.
OPA students instead of our students in that paragraph above, Amy, up to 21st century.
Yep. Second person.
So then that first paragraph, you keep it like that if you're trying to mark it here at Oxford Preparatory Academy. Maybe it's just.
Well, but that's our actual vision.
Okay.
So it's hard. I mean, we could restate it, but then it's changing.
It's
it.
not. Okay. So that's worded as is. Okay.
Like
Yeah.
these two are our actual vision. and
You
mission,
can-
the way that we could change the wording, but
You can, yeah. You can personalize it and then you kind of go into the informational narrative.
yeah.
Okay.
All these headers are they supposed to be underlined, or are they not supposed to be underlined to match, or is the top one not supposed to be underlined? Thought, okay, never mind. It's gone. Oh,
This
wait,
one's underlined, but these
position
separate are
overview.
not.
Okay. See, qualifications is underlined.
Because those are
I think the position,
overall
I think
headings,
the position overview, that's a major heading.
Major
And then
heading.
the over,
Okay.
those are all.
major heading,
Overview.
and then major heading. Those
Okay.
others are just subheadings of the actual position overview.
And okay. Are they is there indents like,
The formatting is all off, so it's all
okay, so they're
get
you're gonna fix that. Okay.
We will work on the cleanup, okay, and indents and making it look beautiful.
Yeah, just read it for content.
Font, all that.
One question, when it said lead educational leader, go up.
Mm,
Oh, shoot, where was it?
I think
It
it's up
said
here.
lead educational leader. Shoot.
should be primary.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
You do like a search for the word.
Yeah.
Oops, if I can spell it right.
You're doing
Yeah,
really
right
well
there.
typing on demand, by the
There it
way.
is, right there.
Yep.
What did you want it changed to?
The primary.
Primary.
Amy, I was this close to actually having to do the typing myself, and then the other Amy picked it up. So thank you for doing that. Otherwise, I would have been typing right now.
You're faster than I am. Thank you, Amy.
I can even answer text messages and type. It's the, you know.
So this is getting super picky now, so you guys can just tell me to like get
I'm
out
with
of here.
you. I'm super picky. So.
Well, so I'm looking again back at that under qualifications, last bullet, very last sub bullet. You can say data-based, but that could also mean a database. So I would say
Mhm.
evidence-based sounds
Yeah.
probably a little smoother.
So this tell differences among colors, that's allowed, is it? I mean, we're not allowed to hire somebody who's colorblind, just out of curiosity.
Where do you see that?
Vision.
All right, I got.
In the vision,
Where is that, Paul?
in the vision section, see in the normal visual range with or without and tell differences among colors, right after physical.
Well,
Good question.
a law firm in the past approved this, so, and wrote it, drafted it, so we can double check on that quickly if we think it's material, if we think it's important.
What's standard? If this is standard, maybe.
This
is
is
it-
I
written
mean,
by
if it's something that, yeah,
the employment attorney wrote it.
Is
I
it
don't-
in the other, is this same wording in other education job descriptions?
There's variability to Nellie if you go out and look.
yeah.
Because every employment attorney and every school interprets differently. I hate, Just to be honest, that's what happens.
Do we need it?
That's what I was gonna say. If it is something that we think we could just take
We can
out,
just take it out.
I would just take it out.
It limits more than it helps, right?
And if anything, it would have ADA issues. Leaving it in, that wouldn't be in if you just take it out.
Mhm.
Good catch.
Are we-
All
We
right,
good?
good.
I like it. Teamwork at its best.
Can I ask a question of process here? So we're wanting to approve this tonight, and are we also approving the salary? Because I haven't heard the results
No.
of the compensation, and they're not posted together?
No,
Oh,
It
okay.
would be- it
because
would
you're
be
gonna,
posted as-
you're gonna negotiate salary. It's not
negotiated.
like you're gonna say, hey, this pays this flat. It's depending on experience and everything else.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you,
normally
'cause-
for a
yeah.
superintendent or an ED job, it would be a negotiated salary.
The board needs to know the market rate for the job. So that's
Sure.
the purpose of the study.
But that would be something that would be negotiated later on anyway.
Are we ready to make a motion?
Yeah.
All right, I would like to make a motion to approve the executive director job description. Having in mind that grammar and some, grammatical changes, if needed to be updated, can be updated.
I think we
second
did
that
get a
motion.
motion in a second, didn't we?
I think now it's just approving, because we
Oh.
had to have a motion in a second before we talked about it.
Yeah, we've got that. I have it recorded.
So now you just need to approve it.
Well, do we have to redo the motion though to approve it and knowing it will have formatting and possible other changes and that's authorized?
As amended.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So let's see, who made the initial motion?
Delight.
Got it. So Delight's gonna amend her motion to say that she recommends it be approved as revised during the meeting and posted.
I make that motion.
Okay. And who second that? Can I get a second?
I
Amy
second.
All
Oh,
right,
seconded.
Oh, second.
Amy seconds. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? This motion carries unanimously. Okay. There we go. We're on to adjournment. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? It's recommended.
I
the
make
board
a
adjourn the
motion that we
rec-
adjourn this board meeting.
All right, Paul says
Second.
adjourn. Amy says second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody against that? No. Okay, great. Motion carries unanimously. Meeting is adjourned.